What's going on, guys? Yash Talaliker and Akhilesh Srivatsa here, back again on the Winning Browns podcast. Today, we are going to be going through the video that y'all have been awaiting for so long. I say y'all while I'm still in California recording this, but I feel like I'm bringing my Louisiana accent before I leave for Louisiana.
Hmm.
Regardless, today we are going to be doing the NFL predictions video that is always and much anticipated. Um, Exciting video for us. Little bit of fun as far as this video, always in the mix. And we're excited to show you what we think about the 2025 NFL season. Akilesh, before we start, do you have any thoughts about how this upcoming season is going to pan out just in general?
I mean, for me, I think that for the first time in a long time, we might not see the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, which is a bold statement, if you will. But at the same time, I just think that this year we're going to see maybe in the first time in a long time that talent doesn't have necessarily to do with everything, and that with the right pieces and the right format, you can go a long way. I think it's really going to remind me of whoever wins this season. They're gonna have some element of those '90s Giants where they may not have had the best team, but they cohesively were the best unit. So that's just something that I take away from what I saw from the roster standpoint this season. But we'll see what happens.
Certainly, I think that's a pretty interesting theme to put out there. I'll argue on the sense that this is a season where the Super Bowl is a lot more open than in years past. Obviously, because the Chiefs have been so dominant over the last 3 years, we've been only
Right.
looking at who's going to beat the Chiefs rather than who's going to win the Super Bowl. This year, I think is a little bit more of a wild card, and I think it opens up for some opportunities for some teams that you might not even think win this Super Bowl this year.
Sure.
Which, as far as predictions goes, maybe said team doesn't necessarily win the Super Bowl, but it does provide a lot more fun for both of us as far as just
Yeah.
making a wild prediction out there, just because we want to, just making this video a little bit more entertaining. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about
Sure.
that more as the video goes on. But for now, let's start off with talking about the AFC predictions and where the Chiefs might end up being as we try to share the screen now. Um, Here we go. And so we're going to start off with my NFL predictions for the AFC. We're going to start off with the four divisional winners. We
Hey,
got,
gosh, you might want to go slideshow on it just in case you want to have a bigger screen to play around with it.
sure, absolutely. Well, I don't know if it can share that. That's the problem, but it's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Um, One way or another, here we go. So we got the Buffalo Bills at number one. And for reference, I put a schedule maker. It's called Playoff Predictors. There's a website called Playoff Predictors that
Hmm.
helps me kind of decide out these schedules and who I think will win every specific game. And the Buffalo Bills, easy set, for it was pretty easy to go through their schedule and just realize that this team has a favorable schedule, but they're also as dominant as last year with Josh Allen coming off an MVP year. I fully expect them, with the way they lost against the Chiefs, to come back with vengeance and at least dominate the regular season like they usually do. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, this regular season is extremely favorable for them to at least take over that number one seed. It can help them get back to being the home favorite throughout the entire playoffs and get that first round bye. To me, the
Right.
Buffalo Bills are going to get that number one seed. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're in a little bit of a tougher division than in past years. Obviously, we're talking about a division that features four Hall of Fame coaches,
Yeah.
incredible amount of coaching talent. You're talking about Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, and Jim Harbaugh in the same division, which is just ridiculous. But the Kansas City Chiefs are still the Kansas City Chiefs. They still have Patrick Mahomes. They still have Andy Reid. They still have one of the best defenses in the
Yeah.
league, which goes under the radar. They're still led by Chris Jones on that defense, Steve Spagnuolo calling the plays. Travis Kelce still might not be the same Travis Kelce as in years past, but he's certainly still one of the best tight ends. And they
For
have a
sure.
much
For sure.
improving receiving room. Gets back Rashee Rice. I don't know for how long. That'll depend on what the NFL decides for him as far as the suspension goes. But you at
Yeah.
least get him for a portion of the year, and as the year progresses, definitely. Then you get,
Yeah.
of course, Xavier Worthy. I don't know what is going to happen as far as the NFL investigation around his situation that came
Mm,
up last year. But it doesn't look like he's going to be punished anytime about anything, which is, good for the Chiefs and good for the NFL. He's very entertaining to watch. And then as far as the run game, they still have Isaiah Pacheco. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they returned Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So they got a deep run game too. So this team is pretty much the same exact team. It's just they don't have a Super Bowl win to come off of. So that might hurt their momentum here. And they're playing it a little bit of tougher division. They're playing it a little bit of a tougher schedule. But I still think this Chiefs team is a team that wins 12, 13 games. And I think that's good enough for a second seed. You got the
hmm.
Baltimore Ravens, who with Lamar Jackson, they're always likely to win 12, 13 games. As far as how they ended up in this third seed, it simply was they just lost uh, in the regular season to the Chiefs. That was a head-to-head. The Chiefs ended up getting the number two seed. I could very well see the Ravens getting the number two seed as well.
Yeah.
But the Ravens themselves, they're a very good team. Their defense is still superb. I would say their pass rush is finally starting to fill up the holes that they've missed up on over the last few years. Really, they
Sure.
haven't had a second edge rusher since Matthew Judon left them. They've been relying on Odafe Owe, but now you get other depth, including the likes of Adisa Isaac, David Ojabo. They drafted someone in the third round this past year. I'm forgetting his name. But they have a deep gauntlet of rotational edge rushers who are starting to really form their own, come into their own as playmakers for that Ravens defense. Obviously, you look at the defensive line, you got Travis Jones, who's starting to become one of the better defense tackles in the game.
Right.
You still have Justin Matabike, who is one of the best defensive tackles in the game. And then that
Literally. Yeah.
secondary, right? Jair Alexander might not be 2020 Jair Alexander, but he's certainly a great depth piece. You still have Marlon Humphrey. You still have Kyle Hamilton, who, in my opinion, is the best safety in the league probably right now. And you got great depth around them. So this Ravens defense in general is loaded. You have Lamar Jackson on the offense. You have two of the best tight ends, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. You have an emerging receiving room, especially with Zay Flowers. You have Derrick Henry. You have all the pieces to make it work. It's just a matter now about making sure that happens in the postseason. Will that be the case? I don't know. Tune in for later on in the episode and we will talk about that. As far as
Hmm.
the four seed, the Houston Texans. Yeah, don't expect much from the AFC South. This division is just really, 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 really bad. But you should give credit to the Houston Texans. In my opinion, I've talked about this in the past. I think they're going to have the best secondary in the league next year. They had three players last year with under a 50% completion percentage allowed. Do you know how rare that is? There's very few teams in the history of the NFL who've done that, and they have three, and they're all very young too. Derek Stingley, Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter, right? Two of those guys were rookies. Not to mention you have guys like Jimmy Ward. Unfortunately, CJ Gardner Johnson got hurt, but still they have guys like Jimmy Ward, guys like Jalen Petrie, phenomenal depth in that secondary as a whole. Then you go to the defensive line, and you got Will Anderson emerging as one of the best defensive linemen in the game. Houston
Hmm.
has a great defense. It's really just a matter of taking that next step. Can CJ Stroud bounce back from so-called a down year? It was a down year, um, but you know, for him, a down year is still, I'll take an Aaron Rodgers quote here. For him, a down year is still better than most other players. And,
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, with the new offensive coordinator, I fully expect him at very least to play a little bit like his rookie year and at least be able to get this team back to winning a divisional title. And it should not be hard with how weak this division is. I fully expect the Texans to get the number four seed. As far as the number five, six, and seven seed, I'll talk about five and six. I think it's pretty easy to tell. The two best AFC wildcard teams are easily the Broncos and the Chargers. The Chargers, as far as how well coached they are, Justin
Yeah.
Herbert being one of the top 10 QBs in the league. They have the best QB situation, other than the Bengals, really, in the AFC of all the non-divisional title winning teams. You got Omari and Hampton to help now backfield that needs more improvements on the run game. You got Najee Harris, so you got a little bit of thunder and lightning mix. You have an improved um, you have an improved receiving room through the draft. You got an offensive line that's still one of the best in the league. Unfortunately, they lost Rashawn Slater, but as we've seen in past years, that hasn't usually stopped the Chargers from being good. It's just the fact that it's unfortunate that Rashawn Slater ends up not being able to play because obviously he's one of the best tackles in the league, and you would hope to have your blindside tackle for someone like Justin Herbert, but you still have Joe Alt, who's emerging as one of the better tackles in the game himself. The defense, they have added some great pieces. They have managed to return certain players, including the likes of what is his name? Christian Fulton, if I'm not mistaken. And
Hmm.
in general, this Chargers team, I look at and they to me seem very similar to last year's team. So in general, I just think that at worst, this team is going to end up at the sixth seed. At best, they could possibly challenge the Chiefs for the division. But for me, the sixth seed is a great safe spot for them based on their schedule. It's a little tougher than other teams, but I got them at the sixth seed. The fifth seed, to me, quintessentially is going to be the Denver Broncos. I'm pretty sure I
Mm.
used the wrong word there, but whatever. The Denver Broncos, they have made a lot of great improvements to their defense, adding guys like Drake Greenlaw, adding guys like Talanoa Hufanga, essentially just stealing half of the 49ers defense. But you got one of the most underrated defensive lines in the entire game right now,
Right.
which I don't think enough people are talking about. DJ Jones had a great year last year. John Franklin Myers had a great year last year, and Zach Allen is probably the most underrated defensive line in the entire game. You
Yeah.
added Alex Singleton alongside Drake Greenlaw in that linebacking core. You have Drew Sanders, who I think is so underrated. Justin Strand. You go to the outside linebacker core. You have Nick Benito, who was almost a defense player of the year last year. Nobody talks about him. Jonathan
Seriously, yeah.
Cooper, Jonah Ellis. The secondary includes, of course, the defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain, right?
Hmm.
Jones, Riley Moss, Chris Abrams Drain, Jaquan McMillan, Jade Barron, who was the 20th pick, who's a third string right now as we speak, as we record
Yeah.
this video. So this team is incredibly deep defensively. And Vic Fangio, I'll admit, Vic Fangio has surprised me. I did not think that Vic Fangio was going to be this good, but or sorry, not Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph was
Mm.
going to be this good as a defensive coordinator, but he has been. And Sean Payton continues to show why he's one of the best coaches in the league. And Bo Nix is
Yeah.
emerging, man. Look out for Bo Nix. Bo Nix is exceeding everybody's expectations, and he's going to be dangerous next year. And this Broncos team is going to be dangerous. They are a sneaky, sneaky good contender. So they are my five seed. As far as the rest of this list to me is just an absolute doozy. And I'm going to change something while I'm speaking,
Mm.
just as I noticed. But this list is I mean, there's a reason why I have Pittsburgh for the umpteenth year at the seventh seed. I know it's boring. I know that it's repetitive. I know that it just sucks to see a team that is as mediocre as the Steelers constantly have the 9 win threshold and still make the playoffs because the rest of the AFC falls on each other. But let's look at the rest of the AFC. This is probably the weakest the AFC has been in quite a long time, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the fact that the Steelers were able to still make an improvement in Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he's not much an improvement, Aaron Rodgers, but he's certainly better than the quarterback room that the Steelers had prior to July, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this Steelers team still made a couple other moves. They did lose Minka Fitzpatrick, yes, but they still have a decent safety room.
Hmm.
Adding Jalen Ramsey alongside Joey Porter is still incredible. Makes an incredible cornerback room. You guys know how high I am on Beanie Bishop, the junior, who is the nickelback on that team, undrafted, who played really well last year. Their defense is still the same defense. You still got TJ Watt now fresh off a huge extension. Hayward, I think we say this over and over again. He ages like a fine wine. He really does. And Mike
Yeah.
Tomlin always has the minimum of, 8 to 9 wins. And I think he's going to get that with this favorable schedule that they have. I think they're going to start off pretty well to the season. Um, as far as their offense goes, there's not much Aaron Rodgers really needs to do. We forget that he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was 4-2 at the end of the season last year, something like that. And he played pretty
Yeah.
well. He played pretty well down the stretch as far as yardage goes, as far as just keeping the ball away from turnovers. He had 13 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, which is classic Aaron Rodgers. Now, obviously, he's not throwing Hail Marys like he used to in the past, but I don't think the Steelers need him to be that, especially under an Arthur Smith system. The big thing, obviously, to make concern is who gets the touches the ball. And obviously, the joke is going to be that Arthur Smith is going to give all the touches the ball to Jonnu Smith, but you
Hmm.
also got guys like Pat Fryermuth, George Pickens. Keep an eye out on Roman Wilson, who's coming back from injury, who I think is going to make a huge dent in the Steelers' offense. Right? You still got Jalen Warren in the game. This Steelers
True.
team has more weapons than you think, and compared to the rest of the AFC, they are still better. I think they're a tier ahead of all the other teams in the AFC. And for that reason, yeah, the boring thing is putting them at 7, but I think that they're going to somehow once again stumble and bumble their way to the 7th seed. As far as the rest of the conference goes, we got the Indianapolis Colts, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. The AFC South in general has a pretty easy schedule to deal with this season as far as some of the competition they have to go through. So I do see them just kind of stumbling their way into an 8th and 9th seed. I don't think these are necessarily good teams. The Colts, I do think, have the talent to perhaps, make a run and make it to the playoffs. But again, their schedule is just a little less favorable than the Steelers. I think they just end up missing out, and I'm still out on that quarterback situation. I do not know what the hell is going to happen as far as Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. They got to figure that out before anything happens, and I don't think either quarterback is going to be nearly as good as perhaps Gardner Minshew was a couple years ago with this Colts team. I think Shane Steichen is kind of stuck in purgatory with this Colts team as far as helping finding even a good signal caller enough to make the playoffs. And I think they're going to be the 8th seed. As far as the 9th seed, Jacksonville is a more talented team. I keep saying this over and over again, and they keep disappointing me. But yeah, they are a more talented team than people expect. This year, I don't expect much of them. The thing is, like I said again, they have a favorable schedule, which helps them. But because of that, they're going to end up the 9th seed. They still have a pretty talented defense. As far as whether that defense can now step up is a different question, right? Liam Cohen, I think, is great for Trevor Lawrence. He's done great things with Baker Mayfield. He's great at being able to get the best out of deep ball throwing quarterbacks like Lawrence. They've got new offensive weapons. Brian Thomas continues to emerge. Travis Hunter, hopefully, we'll see him turn out to be pretty good in his first year as a receiver. I know he's probably also going to be playing cornerback. We'll have to see how he plays there. But the Jacksonville Jaguars have got a great cornerback room too, alongside him. Tyson Campbell, who people forget. This Jacksonville Jaguars team is good enough to be at least in that middle pack as far as teams that miss the playoffs. And for me, that ends up being the 9th seed. The 10th seed, the Cincinnati Bengals. Say what you want about their offense. I agree. 100%. Their offense is great. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, without a doubt. Their defense is worse than it was last year. It is that simple. And you guys know I'm not a big Zach Taylor fan. You guys know that this defense is not that good. And I don't think that they necessarily made the greatest hire at the defensive coordinator. As far as just defensive play calling, defensive personnel. This team is pretty much just stuck in the rut. And I don't, and given especially the, what's it called? the situation with Trey Hendrickson, it doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. So yes, the Cincinnati Bengals are the 10th seed for me. I got the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots at 11 and 12. Really, the only reason I changed the Miami Dolphins up to 11 is because I do think right now I trust Tua Tagovailoa more than I do Drake May, and I trust Tua Tagovailoa's weapons more than I trust Drake May's weapons on top of that. But really, the Miami Dolphins could finish lower than the New England Patriots. They have a tougher schedule, and on top of that, I think there's always the question about Tua's health that can
Hmm.
be out there. But Miami, when Tua is there, people forget. When Miami over the last 2 years has had Tua in the field, they have been a very winning team, especially over the second half of the season. Um, we could talk about December Tua struggling, but this team still usually wins games. It's usually just the fact there's that 1 or 2 games at the end of the season that end up forcing them to miss the playoffs. I'm still at question about how Miami's defense fares out. They have not really, they have struggled a lot ever since losing guys like Christian Wilkins and losing defensive coordinator Vic
Hmm.
Fangio a couple years ago. But this Miami Dolphins team's offense has improved a little. They got a tight end in Darren Waller, even though he is 2 years off of retirement. That is a huge improvement at the tight end for Miami. That's saying a lot. And as far as their defense, they're getting back some players. Jalen Phillips is now fully healthy. Bradley Chubb is fully now healthy. Now you get a guy like Chop Robinson. You get a guy like Akilesh is one of Akilesh's favorite, Muhammad Kamara, who's starting to emerge as a good run stuffer. And you get a secondary that now includes Minkah Fitzpatrick. Really, the concern is the cornerback room. And for me, that might be the reason why I would still be fine at putting New England at 11 and Miami at 12. But for now, just based on the reliability of their offense, I'm still going to keep Miami at 11. New England to me is at 12. Um, I wasn't the biggest fan of all of their free agency moves, but I do like a few of the free agency moves that they made. Milton Williams was a good one. They added a few decent linebackers. We're talking about guys such as Harold Landry. We're talking about guys such as Caleb on Chase on if we're talking for depth. They still have Jelani Tavai. They still have Christian Ellis, excuse me, and their secondary is great. You got Marcus Jones, who I'm a huge fan of as far as a nickelback. You got Kyle Duggar, who I know Keelesh is a huge fan of. Jabril Peppers, right? Christian Gonzalez, one of the best defensive backs in the league, and now you get Carlton Davis. That was a great move, right? But I'm still at question about how this offense is going to be with Josh McDaniels. I don't think he's the best offensive coordinator for Drake May. And this
Hmm.
offensive set of weapons, this wide receiver room is just really, really not that good. When your best receiver is a past his prime Stephon Diggs, that's saying a lot. Um,
Yeah.
to me, this New England Patriots team is the quintessential 11 to 13 seed. I have them stuck at around a 6 win, 7 win season at best. Akilesh, you wanted to say something?
No. Very
All
good.
right. Um, and then as far as 13 to 16, to me, this is pretty easy. The Jets have easily the worst quarterback situation in the AFC East. Um, Fairly weak as far as just offense in general. They have some great players. They have Mason Taylor. They have Garrett Wilson. Um, but I don't expect anything with a first year coaching staff. Their defense is pretty good, and I expect Aaron Glenn to get the best out of that defense. And I
Hmm.
think they will win 6 or 7 games. Um, but again, this team, there's nothing that stands out that indicates that they should be higher. And it's a good thing that they're not any lower based on the teams that are behind them. I think that these three teams are easily worse. Pete Carroll inherits a team that could be anywhere from 10 to 14, but obviously they got Geno Smith who helps turn the tide a little bit. But this Raiders offense or this Raiders team in general, their defense specifically, is just abhorrent as far as talent goes. There was a reason they fell apart last year
Hmm.
so much with Antonio Pierce after winning 8 games back in 2023. But we look at that defense. You got, your best player might, besides Max Crosby, but might be Jeremy Chin, might be Eric Stokes. Neither of
Yeah.
them are necessarily great players. Darnay Holmes is your best, is your nickelback. I was a huge fan of Darnay Holmes back in the day, but unfortunately, he has not turned out to be as good as I thought. Um, a lot of just platoon players, and they're decent, but they're none of them necessarily fit with each other, and that's my big problem. Pete Carroll hasn't necessarily shown to be a guy who is putting up the same types of defensive numbers as far as team defenses that he used to when he was coaching the Legion of Boom. So for me, this team is just limited. You add on top of that the division that they're in. I think that's 6 losses right there between the Chiefs, Broncos, and Chargers. To me, this team ends up being the 14th seed for that. And then the Browns and Titans, not much to say about them. They're easily the two worst teams. The Titans have no receivers, and I think I'm not a huge fan of Cam Ward personally, so it's easy for them to be put at the 16th seed. The Browns at least have some talent in the case of Myles Garrett. You get back Jeremiah Sakuramoa. They still have a pretty good defense, but both teams they're going to be picking in the top 5 in next year's draft, without a doubt to me. So they are my AFC bottom of the bunch. But that's my AFC predictions. You know, Akhilesh, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where would you put certain teams?
Yeah. So from my side, there's some things, most things I agree with, some things I disagree with. But so this is my list here. Buffalo Bills #1. I mean, you just look at as a cohesive unit, they are the best. But a lot of it does depend on James Cook being there or not being there. We did hear about that contract extension not being applied yet for James Cook. So James Cook was a big reason why he was still a part of that, and allowing the Bills to be as successful as they were. So we do have to take that into account when we talk about this team. But overall, Buffalo Bills, I think, as an overall unit, are the better team. The reason why I'm putting the Ravens above the Chiefs is as simple as this. The Chiefs are just not reliable when it comes to their receiver room, and also their offensive line is not as reliable as when you have the talent and the overall just explosive power, both defensively and offensively, as the Ravens. So I'm gonna give it to the Ravens on this one. We just haven't seen a critical injury happen to the Ravens in a long time. So I just believe in the Ravens on that sense more compared to the Chiefs. Now, why do I have the Broncos in ahead of the Texans? The simple reason is this. This defense was probably, you could argue, the best defense in the league last year, along with the best defensive player. And then on top of that, you add even more defensive players to strengthen in various aspects of the overall defense. I mean, when you talk about this defense, Nick Bonito, Patrick Surtain, Zach Allen, Cody Barton, you have Jaquan McMillan, young guys who are just, what, 24, 25 right now, who are just absolutely dominating on that field. I mean, this defense is elite. And then you look at Bo Nix, the transformation that he'll have second year with the likes of Sean Payton as your coach. I mean, it's going to be immense. And you look at that receiver room, it's also got better in the receiver room. Your offensive line is, for the first time in a long time, actually, if you don't mind me saying, actually like a little bit credible, right? There's never been
Yeah.
an offensive line when you look at the Broncos and you say that's a credible offensive line. It's the first time we've seen in a long time. So for me, I like where the Broncos are heading. The Texans, I take at 5. Now,
Why,
the reason why,
Akhilesh, can I step in for a sec? While I agree with you about the Broncos Texans take, at the end of the day, we have to remember that the Texans are going to be the 4th seed in the playoffs just based on the fact that they are a divisional title winner over the
sure.
Broncos. But yeah, I
Okay.
agree that the Broncos are probably going to have the better record. I think that they are the better team. So I agree with that notion.
Yeah, so if you look at my list, Yash, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I still don't understand this whole 4 seed, 2 seed, stupid seed business. So I'm just ranking it based off who I think is the best teams in the AFC. So
That's fair.
if you guys are looking for that, Yash can help me out there. But this is just my rankings of teams that I see in the AFC from 1 to 30, 1 to 16. 5, I'm gonna go with the Texans, simply based on the fact that when you look at the Texans, overall, as an offense, CJ Stroud had a worse season last year compared to his first season. But at the same time, Nico Collins went down with a lot of injuries in that receiving room. You're going to
Correct.
get a lot of players back. However, the reason I put them at 5 is because Lermy Tunsil is no longer a Texan. That's a huge statement because Lermy Tunsil had such an important role when you look at that offensive line. Obviously, your defense, Derek Stingley, Will Anderson, is getting better day by day. And also, along with the draft, you had a lot of good pieces along with the draft. D'Amico Ryan's fantastic head coach. It's just about making that stride now that I see with the Houston Texans. So we'll see how that goes. Um, For me, at number seven, I'm gonna go with the Los Angeles Chargers. Or number six, I'm gonna go with the Chargers. Now, for me, the reason why I'm going Chargers at six, for me, I mean, look, Jim Harbaugh, he's gonna get it better, right? But Rashawn Slater is not there. You have an aging Khalil Mack, right? Your defense, by any means, is still gonna be really good. But is it gonna be as good as it always was? Is my question. So for me, Chargers at six is a safe spot. I just unfortunately, because of Rashawn Slater, I just cannot give them the whole like, oh, it's gonna be you're gonna be because I want like had Rashawn Slater not been injured, the Chargers would have been at four for me, right? But because Slater's injured now, you can't take that. Number seven, I know it's boring, but you have to say the Steelers. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, they're much better, right, in the quarterback room than they've ever been. Your running back room is almost non-existent, which for the Steelers is a little bit of a shame, but that's what the truth is, right, at the end of the day. But when you look at the Steelers, their defense is still as dominant as it's ever been. They still attack the ball furiously. So I just believe in the Steelers being at seven. Now, I know Yash has always some hate for the Bengals. It's just naturally who he is. It's fine. But at the end of
What?
the day,
Where? Hey!
no,
Where the heck?
no.
What?
You've always hated Zach Allen and this
No,
whole
I've
Bengals.
hit it on Zach Taylor. I don't
Zach
hate the
Taylor.
Bengals whatsoever. I, in
I
fact,
mean,
think that they will be better, and I'm rooting for them to get better by
look,
firing Zach Taylor.
Look, all I know is every single season you put them about two levels below where they should be. And in this case, they should be at eight. All I'm saying is when you're ranking this team, would I put the Bengals above the Colts any day? Yeah. Would I put them above the Jaguars any day? Yes. Would I put them above the Jets or any other team that I've listed down? 100%. I don't put. Okay, I agree you had the seeding standard maybe in the way you ranked everything.
No, for
But
me, it was the scheduling for that. That wasn't even the thing. The Bengals just had a harder schedule, and that comes from being playing in a more competitive division than the
even
Baltimore
then,
Ravens, or
even
than
then,
the Colts and the Jags.
but even then, my point being, this team is still better than all those teams. Is my
I
well,
agree with you, but as far as record goes, I'm basing my rankings based off
right.
of just where I think they're going to finish record
Let
wise.
me
And
be
when I
completely
did
honest.
this,
The Jaguars are not finishing 9-8. The
no,
Colts are not finishing 9-8 this season.
I
The
also yeah,
Bengals
no,
will
they're not.
definitely finish at least 9-8 this season.
No.
Yeah,
No, I mean
at
we could
least
go
nine
through.
and
Hold
eight
up,
this
hold
season.
up. So we could go through their schedule for a
Go
second.
ahead.
I'll tell you the teams that I had them losing. First off, they're playing in a division where they're playing the Baltimore Ravens. To me, that is two losses right there. It could be close. It
Sure.
could be close,
Okay.
but I think
Fine.
that the Ravens win just based
I
on the
think we're
fact that
also massively underselling on the defensive coordinator. I'll get to that quickly, but
sure. Um, but as far as the rest of the hold up,
go to
let me
their
pull up their
games.
schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pulling up their schedule. So they
They
play the
got it. They start
Vikings.
against the Browns.
They
They
start off
start
with
against the
Browns.
Browns.
They start
They
off
finish.
against the
They win
Jags.
that game. They beat
2
the
and 0.
Jaguars. They'll beat. They'll lose against the Vikings. They'll lose against the Broncos. I think they can pull off a win against the Lions. They'll
Disagree
lose
on that
against the
one.
Packers. They'll lose against the Packers.
Sure.
Steelers. I'm gonna go with the win here. I'm gonna go with the win against the Jets. Another win against the Bears. I'm gonna go with the loss with the Steelers there. I'm gonna go with the win against the Patriots at 7-4. They'll lose the next two games, leaving them at 7-6. Another loss there, 7-7. They'll take against the Dolphins. Um,
Hold on, give me 1 sec.
no
What
worries.
the hell happened? What the hell?
You just might want to yeah, just cancel the tab if you want. Or just keep it if you want.
No,
Up
I
to
don't
you.
know what happened. Something happened with my tabs. All right, hold
Okay.
up. I'm gonna just pull this up. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So we're going 7-7 after losing against the Ravens on December 14th. They're gonna win against the Dolphins. I'm gonna give them the win against the Cardinals, and I'm gonna give them win against the Broncos.
See,
They're
that's
gonna
what I
go ten
think.
and
I think
seven.
you're understating some of the teams that they play. First off, I think they lose to the Bears. I think they lose to the Lions, and I think one of those
I don't think
Steelers
so.
teams. You said that they're going to go 2 and 0 against the Steelers. I think that they're going to lose one of those two games. I
Okay,
also
fair.
think that
But
they're
even
going
if
to
they
lose
do,
against the
Yash, my point
Cardinals.
is, even if they do, they're going 9-8.
No, they're at to me they're going 8 and 9, 7 and 10. Uh,
Oh
to
no,
me they're going seven
I'm
and
not saying
ten.
7-10. 8-9 may be a possibility, but I'm saying 9-8. See, okay, if you want to take it to that extent, fine. I'm saying that this team is more probable in going 9-8 than the Jaguars and the Colts are.
Well, we could go through the Colts schedule too.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Because my point is, who's the Colts quarterback right now?
That's true. I
That's what
agree
I'm
with you
starting
there,
with.
but
That's all I'm starting with.
let's start off here. So
Okay,
we start off with the
Dolphins,
Dolphins, right? I think
Colts,
they lose against them.
they'll lose that.
Broncos they lose
Broncos, they
against
lose. Titans, they'll win. Rams, they'll lose.
1 and 3,
Raiders,
2 and 3,
1-3. Raiders, okay, fine. I'll give them 2-3. They'll lose against the
two
Cardinals.
and
Lose
four,
against
two
the
and five,
Chargers.
two and
Three
five,
and five,
three and
right?
five,
They'll lose against the Steelers. That's 3-6.
4 and 6.
Falcons.
I think they'll beat the Falcons, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, sure, sure. I'll
I'll
give you that. I'll give you that.
sure,
I agree
fine.
with that.
Lose against the
They'll lose
Chiefs,
against the Chiefs. Lose against the Texans. That's
sure,
4-8 at this point. And then
correct.
they lose against the Jaguars. That's personally to
Disagree
me.
with that.
I
Disagree with
personally
that.
think I think personally, without a reliable quarterback, Shane Steichen cannot do anything. It's been seen before again and again and again.
Yeah, but
4-9.
here's my argument. Every time against the Jacksonville Jaguars, all right, the Colts,
That's
when
true.
they beat them off their run defense. The Jaguars in general, or not their run defense, excuse me, their run game, right? The
Sure.
Jaguars itself this year do not have a great run game whatsoever. They have
That's
a
fair.
exactly. So one of
That's
those two
fair.
games that they are
But
going
at
to
the
lose.
same time, the Colts' pass defense is egregious, and Jaguars are right now, based on their way they've been structured, are spectacular when it comes to their offensive unit.
Sure, 100%, which I think for that reason the Jaguars
Even
will
if you
win
give
one of
them,
those two games. But you
but
look at
Yash,
the
my
rest of
point
their
is,
schedule.
okay,
The first
Yash,
off, this last
I'll give you
Texan.
this. I'll give you this. Hold on, hold on. I'll give you this. They'll lose one of the games against the Jaguars, but they'll win one of the games. I'll give you that.
Sure.
Even if they take that, they go 7-10.
Yes, but
That's my
that's my
point.
point. To me, the Colts and the Bengals and the Jags. This is where I had all three of them. The Colts, Jags, and Bengals all win 7 games, right?
No, no.
The way it
The, Co-
just turned out
no, no,
with
no, 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 no. For me, it's this. The Colts and the Jags win 7 games if the season goes normally. In the season, in the sense that when I say normally, I mean what is expected, they win 7 games.
yeah,
The Bengals, though, they definitely have a higher ceiling.
and that's
They
what I'm
definitely
saying.
have a
I
higher
do
ceiling.
not think that with their schedule, I
I
first
think you're
off,
massively
the re
underselling it.
no,
I think you're massively
I don't
underselling
think
them.
here's the thing. I don't think I'm underselling the Bengals. I think you're underselling the teams that the Bengals play. And I think
No. Go through
matchup
the list
wise,
again. I don't
no, no,
mind.
no, no, no. Here we go. Yeah. So first off, you mentioned the Arizona Cardinals. I think the
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals handily beat the Bengals. I don't even think that game was
I.
close.
Oh, no, no, no. I disagree with that logic completely.
I'll get back to that later on, but I do think the Cardinals
Handedly,
handily.
like
Oh, handily.
completely?
Yes,
No.
100%.
No, not close.
The Miami Dolphins,
They
that
beat
game
them.
to me,
They beat them.
no,
They beat them.
I think the Dolphins beat the Bengals.
No, see, this is where your hate for the Bengals comes in. It's
Not
just
at all.
always something with Zach Taylor and that defense.
Oh,
I'm
not at
telling you.
all.
Look through the
This
records,
is
guys.
just
Look through the records. There's never been
this
a
is
day where
just a
Yash has
scheme.
taken the Bengals where they should be. It's
This
always below.
sure,
I'm
sure,
telling you.
fine. But
Never been that case.
hold up. So this is where one place I think that it really comes down to scheme. Number one, I do think Mike McDaniel is better than Zach Taylor. Number two,
Sure.
all right,
But he
we're
doesn't have anything
talking.
to play around with.
Are you kidding me? Tua
Yes, Jalen
Tagovailoa,
Waddle is
Tyreek
not
Hill,
anything
Jalen
that he
Waddle,
was
a
before.
run game that
Jalen, don't bring up Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was not what he was before. You don't have Jonnu Smith anymore, the reliable tight end. You don't have a reliable offensive line right now. Jalen Waddle is not what he was or what he was expected to be.
Devon
Tyreek Hill.
Achane, Jalen Wright.
Look,
No,
my only point when it comes to the Dolphins, only thing I'll say, as you said, right now to start off the season, sure, you can put that offense hand to hand and the defense hand to hand. But what have we seen time and time again? I'm sorry to bring this up. Tua's concussions, Tyreek Hill just complaining constantly about the overall squad. Offensive line is never reliable. Devin Achane, as good as he is, again, not a reliable guy. Jalen Waddle, kind of since Tyreek Hill came into the number one receiver, hasn't got that chance to be anything special. He really has not been anything special over
okay,
the
but you're
seasons that. One second, let me finish.
sure,
Let me
sure, sure,
finish.
sure, sure, sure.
Bradley Chubb, never reliable, always gets injured on the Broncos and on the Dolphins. Jalen Phillips, last season, went through a horrible injury. Are we going to say he's at the same level? I don't know. Your interior defensive line, not anything to write home about. There's a reason why you don't have them at 9. You have them at 12 or 13 right now. Especially
Sure,
from my side, let me be completely honest. The Dolphins for me right now are at 12, right?
sure.
And they would be right now at 9. The only reason why I'm putting them there is you can never trust the Dolphins when it comes to that offensive line. And if you see the schedule, it's coming to the near the end of the season that where they have to go through all of this, and that's where generally they are the least reliable.
So
We've
my
seen that time and time again.
so my question is, number one, first off, you're talking about uncertainties, right? If we
Mm,
want to talk about uncertainties, we can also mention the Trey Hendrickson situation and the fact that there's
yes,
a good chance that remember, the Miami Dolphins play the Bengals after the trade deadline. There's a good chance
yes,
Hendrickson might not be on the roster by
but
that
at the
point,
same point,
right?
Trey Henderson is still attending practice squads. He is still doing that stuff. He's not like
He's doing that
Mike
stuff, but
Micah,
if
who's
that's
holding out.
yeah, but if that is if that's the maximum type of anything you can give me on your defense, then
That's
that's not
true.
a good way to
Fair.
oppose an offense who, at its best, with no uncertainty, has a healthy Tua, a healthy Tyreek, who, even at his worst, is still better than
But
anything we've seen
Yash, my
the
point is there
Bengals
is no certainty, especially late in the season.
compared to the
We've
Bengals
never.
defense.
No, no. Well, let me say this, okay? Notre Dame's defense, because if we want to bring up the defensive
Sure,
coordinator, Notre Dame's defense had, let's be honest, not at all a great defense. Benjamin Morrison was injured halfway through. Roster standpoint, when you look at it, it wasn't anything to write home about. You had a lot of injured players on that roster who were first round, second round pick levels, who were all injured, completely out for the entire season. They just went to the national championship game, and
sure,
they gave Ohio State a run for their money as well. So let's not
sure.
act like here that it's just a bunch of scrubs that he put together. That
No,
defense was a good defense. Now,
sure.
again, you can make the standpoint that usually college coaches have never been able to translate to the NFL
No,
recently
I wouldn't
successfully.
even make that argument. That's not why I think that Al
I'll I'll
Golden would. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you that. I'll give most people that. You might have other schematic issues, which I'll get to. It's a little bit more of a baseline, old school type of defense, right? Which is just pitch much. Three linebackers. I'm going to blitz you three linebackers up front. I get that. But the thing that Al Golden had for him at Notre Dame was he physically got these guys in the best shape. When you look at the practices, you see a lot of guys, missing tackles and this and that. But over time, if you've seen the recent practices, it's a lot more physical in the practices now.
Sure.
The practices aren't also as long as they've always been when it comes to the Bengals. That's
Sure.
because Zach Taylor, look, Zach Taylor doesn't need to gain respect. He's lost all iota of respect right now because of the way he coaches from September to October. It's egregious. I give you that. But
Sure.
at the same time, the defense from a roster standpoint may not be as great. May not be as great. When you look at the Vikings last season, you did, at least from my standpoint. I didn't look at them as anything to write home about because McCarthy's out. You have Sam Darnold, who, let's be honest, no one expected him to be what Sam Darnold was last season. You look at that Vikings defense, it was still a bit suspect. But if you just look at the roster, you don't get anything. You have to
Sure.
see them play a game. I think in this sense, when you see these guys play a game, I'm just saying the first game of the season, let's see how it pans out. For me, I see it panning out better than the Dolphins because they're more reliable at the end of the day. You've not seen Joe Burrow be out an entire season since his rookie year. You haven't seen Jamar Chase be out his entire season. You have now.
Well,
You don't have
no,
to
no,
worry
no, no,
about
no.
TV
Hold
games.
up. To Jamar Chase missed a good portion of 2023. Joe Burrow did miss a good portion of
Fair, but
2023.
I'm just saying that it's not as unreliable as the Dolphins were. That's all I'm trying to say.
Fair.
At this point, I'm just gonna give them the edge.
But
That's
here's
all
the
I'm
here
trying to say.
here's all I'm saying. If you're going off of uncertainties, there are uncertainties on both teams that cancel out. And from the Bengals, their uncertainty is way more on
No,
defense is way, way, way more significant than any
no.
uncertainty
But see,
Miami
Yash,
has
yeah,
offensively.
no, 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 no. You're good. You're looking at the wrong way. I'm saying the defense from a roster standpoint is so horrible. They
Sure.
lose anybody, it won't make a difference because they'll just be that bad. We look at the Dolphins; they're not great.
Well, no, I
When you
disagree with you
lose one of
because
those
you
offensive
mentioned the
pieces,
Miami.
you go
No,
down
no,
to
no,
the.
because you mentioned the Miami offensive line, right?
Mm,
The best chance that Cincinnati has of beating because here's what I look at when it comes to this game, right?
mm,
Both teams at best have great offenses, right? The
mm.
Bengals have a better offense than the Dolphins, but
Mouse.
yes, without a doubt. But the both teams have great offenses and not so great defenses, right?
Yeah.
Their secondaries are pretty much barbecue chicken in that game. And
Yes.
it's going to
Yeah.
be a
I
shootout without a
agree. I
doubt.
agree. I
Right.
agree.
But what it comes down to in this game to me, right, is the fact that Number one, who has the better defense, which undoubtedly, unequivocally is the Miami Dolphins. And number two, who has the better run game. The only chance, which again is the Miami Dolphins. So the only
Yeah,
chance
fair.
in that the Cincinnati Bengals have at beating the Miami
It's Trey
Dolphins
Hendrickson.
is Trey Hendrickson. And if Trey
I'll give you that.
Hendrickson is an uncertainty, then you can't give me the uncertainty argument as far as
Well, well,
Miami.
well, well. Actually, if we're being completely honest, Trey Hendrickson is less of an uncertainty than Tua getting a concussion and being out. That's just the truth.
Sure,
He's been
but you make
concussion so many times. People have gone to the extent, the entire world went to an extent where this man maybe should question playing football. If that's not a high level of uncertainty, I don't know what is. No,
sure,
number
but
one.
we have also forgotten
Number
that
two
he
for me. Well,
showed up in
one second,
December.
one second. No, number two for me is this. When it comes to Trey Hendrickson, the guy's been fighting the Bengals owner office for a long time.
Yeah,
But he probably went through 10 times worse than what Micah's going through. But to still say, I'm ready to come back and play for them, it shows a level of this. He has enough love for that team to go out there and play again. Okay? And at the other, for me, the other thing is this. Players never do this, right? When they go back into the practice field, even though they're still not happy with their contract, it only means one thing. Things are getting solidified. It's the only thing that means, right?
sure.
So if from that standpoint, there's definitely less uncertainty of him being out compared to a Tua, compared to a Jalen Waddle. And also this time you have to remember the reason why Jonnu Smith was the guy for the Dolphins last year was because Jalen Waddle was non-existent. Tyreek Hill hated playing. Your offensive line was anemic.
Sure.
Your running back room, you talk about Devin Ashane. Well, he has to have a chance to pop off. That's based on the offensive line right now. That they don't have at all. So for me, I'll end it off with this because I do want to kind of finish my AFC rankings here. Bengals for me overall, and you know what? Let me add something here. The Notre Dame defense was not the best pass defense. That's why they lost against Ohio State.
Sure.
But they were the best run defense. Ohio State couldn't run the ball on them anywhere. The national championship, they never had a chance. When you look at Al Golden over his years as defensive coordinator, his pass defense was not always great. I'll give you that. But pound for pound, his run game defense has always been near top. There's never been a situation where you look at Al Golden's defense, you say the run game wasn't there, the pass game was there. There's never been a situation. He's always been a run first guy. From that standpoint, and you look at that linebacker room, which is not great, but I think it's a developing room. Al Golden can take this team to a run defense standpoint, which is pretty good. Now, I get it. Trey Hendrickson is definitely a big question, but it's not as big of a question as when it comes to the health of the Miami Dolphins as a whole. And the other thing I always say about the Miami Dolphins, you have to execute when it matters most. They've never been able to do that. Throughout their years with Mike McDaniel, you can't give me 1 year where you say they finish it off when it matters most. Never. So that's for me the Dolphins. I'll get into that ranking. Actually, I don't need to get into that ranking. It's quite clear.
Right, yeah.
They're at 12 for me. The Colts, the Jaguars, they're kind of interchangeable. Both are, sorry franchises at this point. Obviously, we know with the passing away of Jim Irsay, um, it's a bit of a tough situation on the Colts end. But you have, I think his daughter is going to run the organization now. So best of luck to her and how she does it. Anthony Richardson is being out. I don't know who their next quarterback is. Your offensive line is reliable. I'll give you that. With Quentin Nelson, you have Ryan Kelly. You have a pretty good squad there on the offensive line. Who are your receivers? I don't know. Micah Pittman Jr., he's a good guy. His YouTube channel I used to follow when he was at USC. I don't follow it anymore now.
Right.
Um, I Micah Pittman is great at receiver, but I'm just not sure if he's going to be the guy. Your defense, DeForest Buckner, he's kind of aging out. You really don't have many pieces to be reliable on the defensive end for the Colts. So I can't say anything about that. You look at the Jaguars defensively, you have a lot of talent. You have an extreme amount of talent. It's just about of whether they could execute on the field and they could come together. Josh Allen is a beast, an absolute wrecker when it comes to the NFL. But you just need to have the solid team. If this Travis Hunter, Trevor Lawrence things works out, I might be eating my words when it comes to the Bengals because they could be better than the Bengals if this defense can come together. So I like where that's heading. Um, Now, I know people might be mad at me. I like the Jets at 11. Now, the reason why I say that is just Justin Fields, I believe he's still in, right? I've been a big believer in Justin Fields. Anywhere he's been, I've just always said, just wait, just wait. He can do something. Just watch. When we look at the Steelers, he wasn't great, but he pulled off wins. The Jets, your defense from a roster standpoint is up there. It's a really good defense from a roster standpoint, especially defensive line. The quarterback room, suspect. I'll give you that. Linebacker room, also suspect. But the thing I like is, first of all, Aaron Glenn, he's going to take your defense to another level just based off pure energy. Forget schematics, just pure energy. Now, the offense is going to be a pure running game offense. And we do have to remember, Bryce Hall, when in his rookie season, was amazing to start off with. Recent years haven't gone that way. But they could be pulling off something here. I see the Jets going 7-10, 8-9. I really do see that. I know some people might say 5-12, understandable, but I do see a 7-10, 8-9 possibility out of that. So I'm gonna stick with the Jets at 11. 12 Dolphins, I explained. 13 for me, the Patriots. Mike Vrabel is gonna first of all push these guys way ahead. I think he's gonna get them to around 7-10 range here at best this season. Drake May, Josh McDaniels is a fair reason to be, a little skeptical on. But the reason why I have Josh McDaniels kind of pulling off a good season with Drake May is something about New England and quarterbacks just makes sense with him. Outside of New England and quarterbacks, he's egregious. But in New England, he's a master. You look at Mac Jones; his best season was with Josh McDaniels,
Right.
right? As your quarterback coach. Remember the 2016 season? Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe it was
Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett. Those
Yeah, but
two
the thing
guys
I
played
have a
great
but the difference
over
is
those four
Drake
games.
May is a different type of quarterback than them, and that's I think the big question.
But my point is, Jimmy Garoppolo was a different quarterback than Brady. Brissett was definitely a different quarterback than Brady, but he still pulled off wins and he still got them to be respectable quarterbacks. That's what I think that he does in New England. He just make any quarterback that they get, they just make the best out of them. He always has been able to do that anywhere in New England. So I'm gonna give him the credit there.
But
Raiders for
Akilesh, can I
me.
ask you a question?
Go ahead. Go
Would
ahead.
that
Go ahead.
be, would you think that's partially because he has Bill Belichick watching over him? Now he has
That's
Mike
a fair
Vrabel?
assessment. That's a fair assessment. But at the same time, for me, it's this. Bill Belichick on various occasions has said this. I give McDaniels a full right when it comes to the offensive anything. He's been quite open about that.
Sure,
Anything when it comes to offensively, I give him the full hand on. Now
sure.
I might come in and say, we got no, we won't do this, we have to do that. But I give him full right as to how he wants to structure that offense.
Hmm.
And he's been, we could as a head coach, he's not been good, but we have to give respect where it's due. This man, as an offensive coordinator in New England, has been nothing short of exceptional, really, with what he's been handled. He's always been great anytime he was there. So we got to give him credit there. Now, the Raiders for me at 13. Look, Pete Carroll's a great guy. I just don't trust that defense to do anything at this point.
Right. Yeah.
Their offense, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, I see something there, but till you got a reliable quarterback, who I think they have a pretty good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but it's just not something I see shining. Geno Smith is there, I give you that, but you got to have a decent receiving room to go along with that. They just don't have that right now.
Right. Yeah.
The Browns at 15. Browns and Titans, I mean, do I really have to say anything? The Titans don't have a receiver room. Cam Ward, he's a good quarterback. I just don't see him being anything exceptional. Shador Sanders popped off. I mean, in a preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, who cares? I mean, come on, like let's just be honest. The only reason why we're caring is because he's Dion's son and the owner is a stupid guy. At the end of the day, it's just not anything to write home about. Miles Garrett, I believe in a lot. Like Jim Schwartz, I think it's Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator there right
Yeah.
now. Um, Obviously, a couple of years ago, had one of the best defenses we've seen, maybe ever. And they could pull that off again. But their offense, they don't have Nick Chubb. They don't have any reliable running back. You have five quarterbacks, and all of them are injured. Now you got Shador Sanders, who you picked up a fifth, and you said this guy's absolutely useless for our team. But now you want him to start all of a sudden. It's just a horrible, sorry franchise that's never going to be relatable for anything in the near damn future. It's just a sorry franchise that just needs to drown itself at some point and maybe come back again with something useful. It's an absolute sorry franchise. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, and it's a shame that's the only NFL stadium I've ever been to is some, stupid Browns fan stadium with Paul Brown. Paul Brown's not even there. You know, there's no respect for Paul Brown. The man created that franchise. You don't have Paul Brown as a statue anywhere. You got Jim Brown there, who was for what, 6 years? Oh, come on. Um, you look at the Tennessee Titans. I don't believe in the head coach at all. I said that last season. I'll hate on him in this season. He's an absolute sorry guy who won't amount for anything right now. Not
I'm
because of
starting to
his
agree with
talent,
you on that too.
not because of his talent, not because of his talent or schematics at all. It's just because of what he's assembled. It's absolutely useless. He can't make anything useless out of that.
I'll double
Uh,
down on you on that. I think it's also his leadership. The fact that the matter that his offense and defense, you constantly saw them blaming each other in press conferences last year. That
yeah,
speaks on the culture that he's built in that team, which is far different than what they had under Mike Vrabel.
yeah. I mean, look, I don't mean to be rude or anything when I say like he's a sorry useless guy, but I'm just trying to be honest. That's how it's panned out. The Titans organization, actually more than anything else, I'm hitting on the general manager. That general manager is the biggest mistake that Tennessee Titans have ever made in their franchise history. To fire Mike Vrabel, to lose Derrick Henry, to lose AJ Brown, to lose this, to lose that, and you call yourself a general manager and you still have a job? No. That just shows how horrible the NFL is right now.
I would go as far as blaming Amy Adams, as far as her mismanagement, as far as keeping Mike Vrabel. Should I keep him? Should I stay? Then basically firing John Robinson half this season after trading away AJ Brown. Then having Rand Carthen, who is basically just like a desperation get, firing him after a year after really no true reason on anything. This really starts with the top. To me, the
Yeah,
Titans have become a dysfunctional franchise ever since Amy Adams took over the team, and they do not seem like they're going to get better anytime soon.
it's horrible. You know, for me personally, the thing I hate about the Tennessee Titans franchise was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, this was a team we looked at and said, man, they could manhandle a couple of guys out there.
Right, yeah.
But now we look at them and you say, why are they there? Why are they there?
Right.
I mean, it's completely unfortunate that they have to, be put in that situation.
Agree
But
100%.
that's for me my AFC rankings. Obviously, yeah, the Bengals is probably the most hot topic of my list here, but mostly, Josh, I think we agree. I mean, there might be a couple of switches here and there, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even mad at like you put the Jets above the Patriots. I'm fine with that. I think if I remember correctly, I had all three pretty much with the same record. I think it just came down to like head to head and like whatever the metrics
yeah,
are for that. So I have no problem with that. Again, the Bengals, it comes down to the Colts. I think for me, there as an analytics player, I do think the Colts are going to end up being a little maybe one or two wins better than people think they are. To me, they
okay.
are the analytics darling over there, and for that reason, I still do think they're going to be eight. Really, I could see you saying Bengals over the Jags, but like I said, there are a few teams that I think you're understating how good they are versus the Bengals, and that's where I think we see kind of from a difference.
Okay.
All right, so now we're moving on to the NFC predictions, and this one was a very tricky ranking for me personally. I don't know about you, Akhilesh, but the thing about the NFC that stands out in comparison to years past is the NFC is deep this year. I mean, they are loaded. There are a lot of teams that have the potential to emerge as playoff contenders. There are teams that have the potential to emerge as possible Super Bowl contenders. There are teams that have had Super Bowl contending opportunities in the last few years that
Sure.
may or may not fall off due to certain circumstances, but are still very talented enough to once again contend for Super Bowls. And it's going to be interesting to see because there are a lot of teams that have tougher schedules. There are a lot of teams who have better schedules. There are teams that I think are favorable even in tougher schedules and not favorable in less tough schedules. So it will be interesting to see. I mean, there are some certain teams where I have them ranked lower on this list that I think that they're better teams than some of the teams that they're ranked ahead. I think one stands out on this list, and we'll get to them eventually. But I'll start off with the playoff teams. the divisional winners. And I want to make this clear. I did edit this list. Obviously, we were recording the first part of this video before the Micah Parsons trade happened. I did re-edit the predictions right after the Micah Parsons trade happened, so these are updated. I still do think that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be the number one seed. I know a lot of people are sleeping on them because of JJ McCarthy being the quarterback. I honestly think that if Sam Darnold was playing as good as he was last year with the team, and we know Sam Darnold's limitations. I'm not sitting here and saying that Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback by any means, but I also do think that if he was able to play that well, just with JJ McCarthy's potential, he gives Minnesota more advantages in games that would otherwise look unfavorable to them. On top of that, this Minnesota team on paper is a much better team than they were last year. And this last year team, the Vikings went 14-3. I don't know if they'll go 14-3 per se again, but I do think the way that the entire rest of the NFC favors out with how many different teams are going to beat up on each other, Minnesota by default has a, golden opportunity to just find themselves at the number one seed. In addition, I do think JJ McCarthy is going to be better than people think. I compare this, and I don't want to sound like I'm making him out to be 2018 Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, he's entering a very similar situation that Mahomes did in 2018. You're talking about one of the best offensive play callers in the league. You're talking about a guy who brought the best career season out of the guy who was the placeholder first said JJ McCarthy. The only real difference is, can JJ McCarthy recover from the torn meniscus, and does he have that development ahead of him that can let him perform at that level? And I don't expect him to be JJ McCarthy expect him to be Patrick Mahomes if for that reason. He could end up having a Patrick Mahomes season if he didn't come off that torn meniscus season. Maybe not to the same extent that Mahomes did. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is one of one. But I still think that JJ McCarthy will still be, even if he's not necessarily a 4,500 passing yard quarterback right away, he can still be very much, way more above average, way more than passable enough to be the quarterback that the Vikings need for him to be a number one seed, especially with the core that he has. Now that they've traded back for Adam Thielen, they already have, of course, the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. Very serviceable, above average number two receiver in Jordan Addison. Obviously, Jordan Addison is going to be suspended for a bit. I don't think that takes away from the Vikings. He's been struggling with injuries in the past for a while, but for the matter of the fact, the Vikings have still been fine with or without him, right? Their run game is better. They added a Jordan Mason, taking away from my 49ers at that, but their run game looks very good. Their offensive line, in my opinion, is one of the best, and I don't think enough people are talking about the fact they took two of the best offensive line away from one of the best offensive linemen, or one of the best offensive lines in the game in the Indianapolis Colts, taking away Will Fries and Ryan Kelly.
If you want, you can go in the present mode just to kind of get a bigger screen if you want.
Sure. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about Will Fries, you talk about Ryan Kelly. These are two of the best offensive line in the game, and you add them alongside Donovan Jackson. Christian Darrisaw is coming back after a season-ending injury last year. The Vikings' offensive line in general is a lot stronger than they were last year. You look at the defensive line. You got Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. You have a 3-4-man rotation at the outside linebacker / defensive end position. Obviously, with Brian Flores' versatile scheme, it opens up a lot of different opportunities. You look at the back line. You got Josh Metellus, who's looking really good. You got Byron Murphy, who you retain, right? This Vikings team is complete almost in all centers, having a combination of platoon players, which you don't usually see at the NFL level, but that's the genius of GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but also just the scheme-dependent stars of the past that perfectly fit this team. As an analytics nerd, this is an analytics darling of a team that has a perfect schedule lined up for them. And for that reason, I do think the Vikings have the advantage of being able to hit that number one seed. And I think they will be the number one seed because of that. I think they'll also barely edge out the Green Bay Packers for that number one seed. We'll get to that. When I did the schedule, the Vikings had one win over the Green Bay Packers, so it was very close. But yeah, I did have the Vikings as the number one seed. Number two is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Same record. The Eagles just had lost on that sorry, it might have been one loss less. I don't remember, but the Eagles ended up being the number two seed. I still think they're going to have a great year. I think they're going to get caught in a couple trap games early on in the year, but I do think, as we've seen in the past, those trap games don't seem to be a problem for them as the season goes on. They're a lot like the mid 2010 Patriots in the sense that they might start off very slow, but by December they truly hit their stride. And this Eagles team is as talented as any in the league at every position. I don't think I really need to say much about how good their roster is, whether that's Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, the offensive line, the entire defense. I think they're great. I want to shout out a couple players, though, that I think are going to be key in how good the Eagles can be next year. If we're talking in comparison to last year, just the regular season, Azeez
Right.
Ojulari. Keep an eye on Azeez Ojulari. He had, if I'm not mistaken, 8, 9, or 10 sacks last year. I'll have to go back to the numbers to check, but he was incredible for the Giants as a third pass rusher behind Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. He's a perfect scheme fit for this Eagles defense, and you add him alongside guys like Nolan Smith. I think he's an improvement over even a guy like Josh Sweat in this system. You, of course,
Right.
have Jalen Carter, who's now entering his third season. What he can do with this team, I think he can take that next step into becoming a superstar. Same thing goes with Jordan Davis. Um,
Yeah.
a guy that I look at the back line who can really take this secondary to another level. I mean, you already have Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who are only going to get better as
Right.
young cornerbacks. But look out for rookie Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas, a guy who, after losing CJ Gardner Johnson, his hitting prowess and how electric he can be, if he's, you know, one of the best rookie safeties in the league next year, which I fully expect him to be, this Eagles team could be easily the number one seed, even over the Vikings. But for now, I do think, based on where I saw them as far as just kind of predicting their schedule, I think 2 is a safe bet for them to put, as I think that they're going to get better as we see going to the playoffs. Number 3 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think, if the cards play right for this Buccaneers team, I think they could very well be in the Super Bowl. We'll have to see. We'll
Wow.
see that as far as what the playoff predictions look like. But this Buccaneers team is really, really good. You added someone like Hassan Reddick to that defense that includes
Right.
some really young but really good cornerbacks in the likes of Jacob Parrish and Benjamin Morrison. Obviously, you have one of the best safeties in the league in Antoine Winfield Jr. You're one
Sure.
of the best defense tackles if you want to go for the front three in Vita Vea. Surround him by Logan Hall and Kalijah Cansey, two very promising and two of my favorite defensive line prospects in years past. You got a great linebacking core led by, of course, a veteran in Levante David and an emerging young outside linebacker in Yaya Diaby. I think this Buccaneers defense is slowly starting to make Todd Bowles show why he's the genius defensive coordinator that he is. And not just that, a much better coach than people think he is. You
Yeah.
look at the offense, obviously Baker Mayfield is a MVP contender this year. We're talking about a guy who had 4,000 passing yards and played really well down the stretch of the season, and a guy who gets slept on just based on the fact that they've had a lack of postseason success. But they've been very close to having some deep postseason runs the last 2 years. And you have arguably the best receiving core that Baker Mayfield has had in his tenure with the Buccaneers, whether that's getting a healthy Chris Godwin back. You, of course, have Mike Evans, and you also now got Emeka Ogbuka, not to mention you have two phenomenal tight ends in Coke Cleft and Cade Otton, and a receiving slash great running back in Bucky Irvin, who can also add receiving yards on the ground as well as being great in the run game. If you look at the rest of the depth chart of the Buccaneers, you also have guys like Tez Johnson, who I think is a great depth piece. Sterling Shepard, who was a starter for years and a great veteran presence for the Giants. He's now on that team. Jalen McMillan, who was great for the Buccaneers last year. Jaden Smith, Ryan Miller. I mean, this team has a lot, and I mean a lot of depth offensively. So I think that this Buccaneers team, they are easily going to win the NFC South. And I would really be looking out for what they can do. The Rams, I think they have an open path to the NFC West. It pains me to say, given how much I hate the Rams. I think the biggest question about this team is Matthew Stafford's health. It does look like he's going to, at this current moment, play week one. Whether that ends up remaining the case down the line, we'll have to see. But I
Right.
am interested as far as how long Matthew Stafford will stay on the field. Obviously, he's getting older. He's had a lot of these injuries tally up in years past. And if those
Sure.
injuries do tally up, that is going to be a major problem for the Rams. But if Matthew Stafford is healthy, this Rams team is a Super Bowl contender, without a doubt. I mean, I think Devontae Adams, as much of a down year as he had, is still an upgrade over Cooper Kupp at this point in his career. You're
Uh,
talking about a
yeah.
guy just as far as overall receiving prowess, as far as being able to create yards after the catch, being able to create air yards, being able to overall just be a decent receiver as far as in the red zone and just as far as moving the chains. Devontae Adams is still a very serviceable receiver. You
Yeah.
add him alongside Puka Nacua, who's easily one of the best receivers in football, and if
When
healthy,
he's healthy,
a
yeah.
top three receiver. Um, you had Kyron Williams in the run game, who's great. This Rams team, this offensively, they're as good as Sean McVay wants them to. Defensively, though, this team, I mean, they're going to be good. Jared
Yeah.
Verse, Braden Fisk. I would look out for the linebacker Omar Spates. He would, I think he could easily emerge into a breakout star for the Rams. You look at, why am I forgetting the names? Kobe Turner, another potential breakout
Right.
star for the Rams on that defensive line. You look at
Yeah.
the other edge rusher, Byron Young, who is a very promising, very athletic superstar for the team. I think this Rams team is as good as any to be able to contend for a Super Bowl. And I think they'll be a dangerous team to watch out for. Five, I'm going to go with the Packers. I think that now with the emergence of Micah Parsons, they're jumping up in the rankings for me as far as where I see them as far as the standings. I ended up having them originally as a 6 seed. Now I see them as a 5 seed. That pass rush is going to be deadly between Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Micah
Yeah.
Parsons, Luke Van Ness. Their defense as a whole looks pretty good. If there's one position I'm concerned about on that defense, it's the secondary, which is why a huge problem to me when it comes
What?
to not the safety line, the cornerbacks. Um,
What?
yeah. Why?
Statistically, last year they were top five in pass yards allowed, top five in most
Yeah,
drops.
that's because of the safeties though. That's because
No,
you have two of the
I'm
best safeties
saying
in the
no.
league.
I'm saying within like if you look statistically when they take around, if you look at there was one stat that I saw. If you took yards of receivers that they ran, say 5 yard routes, 10 yard routes, that's safeties can't do much there. You if you say 15 yard routes, I get you.
Oh, okay. No, no,
Yard routes, 5 yard routes, they were top five in pass coverage.
no, I
Lead
get that. I
yards
get.
allowed, they were top five. The only thing that they were trash at was pressure rate, which they were 26th. Now with
Oh
Micah
no, no, I
Parsons,
get that.
who's
I
the
get
bet?
that. I'm not sitting here and saying that they don't have a good cornerback room, but I do not think that their cornerback room will fare them an advantage against teams that have a number one receiver like a Justin
I
Jefferson, an AJ Brown,
don't know about that.
or even
I don't know
other
about that.
teams in the division like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think and we've seen this, they have
That's
struggled against those number one receivers. Um, they could very much make a trade at the deadline, and that could make them that much better and potentially have them win the division over the Vikings. We'll have to see about that. But if all I'm saying is if there's one position I'm concerned about on that defense, it would be the cornerback room. Um, the
okay.
safety room, if we're talking about, yeah, I mean, Xavier McKinney speaks for himself. Evan Williams had a great year last year. This
Right.
defense as a whole is still very, very good. And for that reason, with the addition of Micah Parsons, they will be even better. I'm interested in seeing how much Jordan Love improves. People on this podcast know I'm not necessarily the biggest Jordan Love fan. I don't think he's
True.
necessarily as good as some people say. I think a lot of people are banking more on his potential than his actual production so far. But I do think that he definitely has that potential to be an elite quarterback. And if he takes that next step this year, I think the Packers could very much be a Super Bowl contender. And whether that ends up being the case, that's for more down the video. We'll see that later on. As hold up, Akhilesh, can you? Did I move? Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so I guess you guys got a kind of a sneak peek at the later part of the video. But yeah, that's the
Yeah.
Packers for you. The Arizona Cardinals are at 6. I think this is the breakout team of the year. I think that Kyler Murray had a great season. I think that this defense is starting to emerge. They added some great pieces. This was a defense who was 12th in the league last year and added a lot of great pieces, whether you look at Calais Campbell, whether you look at that secondary. Overall, Arizona, I think, is going to be a much more improved defense. Jonathan Gannon is a phenomenal coach in my eyes. I think the
Sure.
real key as to how good this Arizona team could be is how much Marvin Harrison improves from year 1 to year 2. A lot of people thought he had a down year as far as his rookie season, which is unbelievable to me. The man had 800 receiving yards. And if that's a down year, that just goes to show how much his potential is. I think Marvin
Ah,
Harrison um, could very well be one of the better receivers in the league next year. And as to how much he emerges, maybe if he's a top 10 or top 5 receiver next year, this Arizona Cardinals team could win the division, could be a Super Bowl contender. Um,
yeah.
but for now, I think 6 is a safe bet. And then 7, this was the interesting one because originally on the playoff predictor method that I use, I actually had the Giants as the 7th seed, but I want to not doubt the Washington Commanders. I've doubted
Right.
Jaden Daniels enough. I've doubted a lot of quarterbacks enough to know that I can't make that mistake over and over in my predictions. They have an elite quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, when you have a quarterback like that, you cannot doubt the team no matter how many questions you have. And I trust me, believe me, I have a lot of questions about this Washington roster. They do not have great edge rushers whatsoever. They've gotten worse as far as their depth defensively. All right, they're relying heavily on platoon players, and that is a recipe for disaster as far as other teams figuring out your defense, especially when your defensive play caller is Dan Quinn, who's not necessarily known as always being the greatest defensive play caller if we look at past reputation. So it's going to be interesting to see from year 1 to year 2 how much Dan Quinn improves this defense from that angle. Also, obviously, this was made. My prediction early on was dependent on whether Terry McLaurin stays. He's staying, obviously, for
Yeah.
this Washington
That's a
Commanders
big
team.
deal now.
But they also traded away Brian Robinson. So I want to see how much their run game does. Does it
That's
improve?
true.
Does it stay the same? Does it decline? That's going to be another interesting thing to see. But again, when it comes push to shove, you have Jaden Daniels. He's the answer to all your problems in Washington, and for me,
Yeah.
that's the reason why they're at 7. As far as the rest of this team, I'm gonna go through the Giants and the Lions first. The Detroit Lions and the Giants and the Commanders all had the same record as far as what I had playoff predictions wise. Do think the Lions are the quintessential 8 seed this year. A lot of my questions around this team rely on how much Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were important to this coaching staff. Um,
Yeah. Good point.
if their coordinators can be even half as good as they were, they might be a playoff team. They're as talented of a roster as any in the league. This is probably the most talented roster that they've had in Dan Campbell's tenure as the Lions coach. But again, a lot is reliant on Ben Johnson's scheme. I don't think their receiving core is as good as people say it is always, but certainly they have a good receiving core with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. They have good depth. But can it be as good as it was last year is the major question to me, especially with how loaded their division is. And of course, I think that they're going to start as far as schedule. They have a pretty tough schedule to start off the year. I think they'll bounce back as the year goes on. But
Right.
to see whether that they can stay as far as in the playoff mix is going to be the major question. The New York Giants. I think this team could have a great opportunity being a playoff contender. I think people are sleeping on Russell Wilson. I think people are sleeping hail on even Jameis Winston as a quarterback. I
Hey,
think,
Yash, keep going. I just got to attend a quick thing, 1 minute.
sure,
Just keep
no
going.
problem. As far as Russell Wilson goes, I think that Russell Wilson is overhated at this point in his career. I think that he's shown signs of being good with the right system, which is Brian Dable, with his ability to still throw the deep ball at a high level. He's very accurate in that sense. His major problem is that he's become a lot more inconsistent without the Seahawks system. But Brian Dable has a lot of key pieces that make his offense very similar to that Pete Carroll-esque Seahawks system that, in my opinion, perfectly fits Russell Wilson. So I think he will be a lot better, especially when you have a receiver like Malik Neighbors, and you have deep threats like Jalen Hyatt in that system. A run game of the Giants is getting a lot better. You have Tyrone Tracy. You have now Cam Scatabo, who was one of my favorite running backs in the entire draft. And that defense, I mean, that defense has improved a lot in the last 2 years. Akilesh can testify to this once he gets back. But I remember 2 years ago, we were talking about this defense as being potentially the worst defense in the league and not having truly a good name outside of Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. Now you got a defensive line that is giving Dexter Lawrence a lot of help. You got a pass rush that includes the likes of Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and now Andre Carter, who was the third pick in the draft last year. You have a emerging linebacker Micah McFadden. Your secondary turned out superb last year as far as some of the draft picks that Joe Shane made, whether that was Tyler Nubin or Andrew Phillips. And then you add someone like Paulson Debo to the mix. You add someone like Javon Holland to the mix. This defense is really, really, really good, and I think could be one of the breakout defenses in the entire league next year. So as far as just a lot of breakout candidates, I think this Giants team is poised to have a winning season without a doubt. As to how far they can make it afterwards, that's the major question. But this Giants team is a lot better than people are giving. Even with the schedule, I think that their schedule is more favorable than people say. The first 6, 7 games, admittedly, are rough. Like they're going to have to find a way to get through one or two of those games in order to truly hit the prediction that I think they will. But afterwards, I think their schedule is not that bad. I think they have a few divisional games that they will be able to win. That will help them as far as getting that winning season. And I think that 9 for now is a very safe bet as far as where they end up being. The Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson's their coach. Caleb Williams could have a great emergence, and that could have helped them being a playoff contender. But there are still enough holes on this roster for me to say that they're not going to be in the playoffs, whether that's their questionable run game at times, whether that's not necessarily having an emergent second edge rusher outside of Montez Sweat. We've been talking about how great Austin Booker is, and he had a great preseason, but as to whether that can translate in the regular season, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
And overall, this defense is kind of just iffy. I think Dennis Allen can make it a lot better, no doubt, but I think that first year is going to be a little bit of a struggle upwards. Just at times, they're going to be a little bit inconsistent, and that's going to cost them a playoff spot. I still think they're going to be very good. The 49ers, I will admit this as a Niners fan, I don't think that this Niners team is as good as where I have them ranked. I originally had them as a 9-8 record as the playoffs, and I still do have them as a 9-8 record. That is particularly because of how easy their schedule is. I do not think that this is a 9-8 team. I think that their record will be inflated by how easy their schedule is. I think they have a lot of favorable matchups. And I think partially why they are going to be number 11 is because of why I think so highly on Brock Purdy. But other than that, I mean, this Niners team is a lot worse than they've been in years past. I mean, their defense is solely relying on three players, being Deommodore Lenoir, Fred Warner, and Nick Bosa. If you look at their defensive line, I mean, a lot of the guys that you look at on the defensive line, if you aren't a Niners fan, it would be hard to really know who some of these players are. I mean, their defensive line has fallen apart bad in the last year. And for that reason, I just don't trust the San Francisco 49ers team to do much as far as being a playoff contender in any sort of way. The Atlanta Falcons are at 12. I think this team has a lot of potential. But I do think that their schedule is very unfavorable to them. There are a lot of matchups that I just see them kind of being trap matchups for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of their coaching staff, specifically head coach Raheem Morris, and that hurts them a lot in some of these matchups. If there's one reason that they do make the playoffs, however, it will be Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix played really well at the end of the year. Admittedly, it was a very short sample size, but I think that Michael Penix definitely has the potential, especially with the offensive pieces around him. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, to be able to make this offense that much better. But I still have questions on their defense, especially with losing some of the veterans that made them as good as they were last year, specifically Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons. It's not a big loss for them, but certainly their defense wasn't the best as it was. So I would say that Atlanta is number 12, as somehow something happened. Yeah, there we go. Um, as far as the rest of the playoffs, I'll go pretty quick through this. 13 Seahawks, to me, they're the quintessential number 13 seed. Um, I just don't know too much about how Mike McDonald coaches this team. There's too many question marks. I think Sam Darnold could be a good quarterback, but their receiving core is very iffy as far as Cooper Kupp is a little bit of a decline. Obviously, you lost DK Metcalf. There's too much mid on this team. Let's just go with that. I think that their defense is very average in comparison to the better running backs and the better skill position players that other teams have. I think that the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker's a great running back, don't get me wrong, but in comparison to others, he's very average. So from that standpoint, I just think that the Seahawks team they're quintessentially just stuck in the middle in a loaded NFC. For that reason, I see them being a 13th seed. The Carolina Panthers, I think they'll be better than they were last year, but their division just doesn't exactly line up for them. Their overall schedule playing in the NFC this year, and overall they just have way too many questions for me to put them any higher. Whether that's their offensive line, skill position players aren't necessarily as good as anybody else's, and their defense. Their defense was bad last year. And I like Ejiro Evero, but their defense has to improve a lot more than they were last year in order for them to do anything good. The Saints and the Cowboys, to me, are the two worst teams in the NFC. The Cowboys, I think, could end up being a 14 seed just based on their roster. Obviously, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have Dak Prescott, they have George Pickens. They have a decent offense, no doubt. But Brian Schottenheimer, I do not trust him whatsoever as the coach and the offensive play caller. I don't know what to think of him, and I don't think he's going to be a good coach. You look at the defense now, and now they've lost Micah Parsons, a huge loss. Obviously, if you look at the rest of their defense, really relying on two players, DeMarion Overshown, who is injured and might not start the season, and Trayvon Diggs, who is very inconsistent. So this Cowboys defense does not give me a lot of faith, and you add in their incredibly difficult schedule, incredibly unfavorable schedule as far as a lot of matchups. This Cowboys team has trap games pretty much every other week at best, and I think that's a perfect recipe for, unfortunately for them, being the 16th seed, which could honestly be the best for them as far as leading a rebuild, but that's a topic for a different day. But this Cowboys team, yeah, I do think that they might end up the 16th seed, and that might be shocking for some Cowboys fans because on paper, this is a better roster than a 16th seed, but their schedule does not line up for them well. The Saints are 15, 16. They're one of the worst rosters in football. But I do think that they have a few matchups that at the end of the year they could eventually win. And as far as just win record wise, they ended up having the same head to head. They had the same record as the Cowboys. They just ended up having the advantage as far as tiebreakers go compared to the Cowboys. So they ended up being the 15th seed. But yeah, that's my NFC predictions. Like I said, a very loaded NFC, but I mean, Akhilesh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, overall, like it's a good list. I do have some disagreements as will come to mind, but
Mhm.
it's overall a pretty good list. From the bottom up, I'll say I agree with the Cowboys. the Saints and the Panthers. You said it's a topic for a different day. I say it has to be talked about right now. I mean, this whole Micah Parsons thing, like, we have to really look at it from a standpoint of Jerry Jones, for the longest time, has really not been a successful owner. From 1999 onwards, he has not been a successful owner. From the standpoint of, or not a successful owner, rather, not a successful general manager, right? He's just not been any good. The fact of the matter is, you draft players in. You do that. Sure, you have a pretty good, scouting staff on your hands. Dallas has always had that. But the problem is you guys never maintain a sense of respect from a general manager to an individual. This whole thing about the fact that Micah had the deal set, but the agent screwed it up. This is one of the best agents that the NFL has ever known. I mean, you look at the amount of players that's under the specific agent of Micah Parsons. It's incredible. Dude, the resume of that individual is incredible. And to still be disrespected is, beyond me. The fact that they traded Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers, you know what it reminded me of, Yash?
What did it remind you of?
When it comes to superstar players going to any place, Packers have had the greatest history in terms of getting results off it. Charles Woodson, Reggie White. Need I say more? Both of those delivered Super Bowl. Both of those delivered Defensive Player of the Years. Both of those delivered Hall of Fame careers. If we're being honest, Charles Woodson's one of your favorite players. When he was with the Raiders for 8 years, he was good for 3 and very average the next 5. That is the truth. When he came to the Packers, that's when he got this resurgence. When you look at Reggie White with the Eagles, you got to remember, the man never won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Reggie White here, never won a playoff game over his tenure at the Eagles. He was a Defensive Player of the Year. He dominated like no one ever saw. He came to the Packers. God sent him to the Packers, and lo and behold, he's one of the greatest defensive players to ever play this game.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see an effect with Micah Parsons, I think, this year that's going to resemble something from a revenge standpoint that we've never seen before. I'm saying that right now. In the sense that when you talk about Super Bowl, it's really possible. You could have your doubts on Jordan Love. I certainly don't. You guys know this. Me and Yasha kind of have really opposite views when it comes to Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I have a lot of love. He has no love. That's kind of how it goes. When it comes to Jordan Love, for me, the improvement is insane. I think that's what I look at it, right? When he came into the NFL, he was a raw guy who really just threw the ball up. Now he knows what he's seeing. He knows what to see. More importantly than anything else, he knows what to see. I think that's really important. So I think from that standpoint, Jordan Love's going to go leaps and bounds. Now he has also – actually, if you don't mind, could you show my list here?
Sure.
I think – so I'll start it off here.
Sure. Hold on. Give me 1 sec.
As you guys get a look into
there we go.
We have coming up. So my list slightly different from Yasha's to start off the board. So I think the Eagles are still the number one team. I mean, you look at that team from a defensive standpoint, offensive standpoint, they still have the same amount of guys. In terms of overall talent, overall efficiency, they really knock it off the board. That offensive line, I mean, yes, Landon Dickerson is injured for the remainder of the season, but still, I think when you just look at their offensive line, I mean, they bring in guys who have never played football, and then they make them, Pro Bowlers, all-pro guys. So in this case, I really don't doubt the fact that, they got injured. I think they're just going to go at it like they've always gone at it. So I think the Eagles will take the number one seed. Now, some people might be surprised. I like the Rams here a lot. In fact, as you guys will see later, I got them going to the Super Bowl. I think the Rams this year are a very underdog team. You talk about Matthew Stafford, I certainly believe he's going to be back. A guy like Sean McVay doesn't just make up lies, just to get his team on paper. We know that of Sean McVay. So I think he's going to be back. Their receiving core is a good receiving core. It's young, it's fast, it's quick, tenacious. I like their receiving core. The offensive line is a bit of I think that's really the only questionable part that I see about this team. But I think it's something that Matthew Stafford has faced his entire career, and he's still been successful out of it. Might I also say a Hall of Famer, maybe not first ballot, but definitely a Hall of Famer. So with that being said, I think it won't be a distraction. This defense, I would say it's almost like a replica of the Eagles defense, but it's much more young and much more tenacious. That's what I really think about this Rams defense. They're a really young squad, but not raw. you saw it last year. I mean, you sacked, one of the best offensive line units. You beat them. You sacked Sam Darnold in the playoff 9 times. I mean, it's credit to them, right? How they play, how they dominate. So I would take the Rams at 2. Now, next, what I do want to do is at number 3, I put the Vikings. Now, reason why I put the Vikings here, um, it is JJ McCarthy. Look, I'm not. Look, he's a good. Jim Harbaugh's hailed him one of the greatest quarterbacks he's seen in college football. All that may be true, but everybody knows this. It's a different game in college. It's a different game here. By the way, quite disappointed overall. This college game day weekend was not the greatest weekend.
It
It was
was
okay,
not.
average. It did not definitely go to the hype. So hopefully the NFL turns out better. Thursday is going to be a massacre of a show. But when we look at 3, I can't wait. I can't wait to see a Cowboys film. 3, when we look at the Vikings, I think the Vikings they're slowly they'll get there. The playoffs. They're a top notch team, right? They tick off all the marks. We just don't know what JJ McCarthy is. He's never been a deep ball guy. That's what the Vikings were built on last year.
So as I was saying, when it comes to the Packers, I think first of all you look at that defense, Brian Flores, and the emergence that they've had over the past, really the past 2 seasons. I mean, it's been incredible. You talk about one of the best coaches in the league right now as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. With all this being said, I mean, he really is the quarterback whisperer of this era right now.
Hmm.
But still, do I believe in JJ McCarthy to be that stellar talent is going to take them to the number one of the entire NFC? Not yet. No. I think if he proves himself to be a decent quarterback this season, I'm saying yes, definitely to number one next season. I've just not seen any of him in the NFL. There's been no action. Even
Right.
preseason, there's really been no action for me to
Right.
say definitively, oh, this guy's going to be it. So I just can't. Number 4, I am putting the Packers. I don't know if this pans out with the right way of the Packers should be at
I
5 or 6
think that
or
yeah, the
whatever.
Packers should be a 5 and 4. I don't think it'll matter because playoff matchups will be the same.
Right, but I think for me, the Packers with Micah in there, it just jumps a huge level. As I was explaining before, Mina Kimes, who by the way I have so much respect for because she's really the only individual that I've seen that uses stats properly, not just for the sake of using numbers. She really looks at numbers from a standpoint of the individual, not no making up an individual as a number. Um, if you guys don't get what I mean, you should watch her a lot. See what she talks about. I mean, she's really, I think, the best representation of what it means to be a sports analyst. So first of all, huge fan. But she explained when it came to the Packers that the Packers were a top 5 in pass defense, top 5 in amount of yards per catch allowed, top 5 in least yards per attempt. In so many statistical categories, their rush defense was also pretty decent. The thing that they lacked on was just getting pressure to the quarterback. I mean, they were ranked, I think, 26th when it came to pressure on the quarterback. I think around 15th when it came to sacks. And then now you add in the highest pressure percentage that an individual can put on a quarterback in Micah Parsons over 3 years, and every year he's been at the top. And let's also remind ourselves, Micah was injured half the season last year and still pulled off 12 sacks, which is, I mean, just insane. So I think with that being said, you got Rashawn Gary, another Michigan guy for Ayash. I don't know if he's a Michigan fan at this point, but um, you still got a guy like Rashawn Gary who can rush the passer, who can play at middle linebacker if need be, kind of really the jack of all trades. Along with their recent defensive coordinator who really improved that defense overall, as we saw this past season. So I think with Micah Parsons now, we know the chemistry with Jordan Love. We've seen the interview so many times after the trade. I think at this point, I think that the Packers really are at the stepping stone of what could possibly be a dominant run. Um, Mind you, it does depend on quite a lot of factors, but I could see this being a really dominant run. Also, shout out to Matt LaFleur, who people have just been disrespecting way too long. This man should be a Coach of the Year awardee. You look at the amount of struggles that he had to go through the whole Aaron Rodgers saga, losing Devontae Adams, to still be a winning coach like that year after year. I mean, that deserves a Coach of the Year award at this point. 5, the Bucks. I don't think I'd ever be saying this. The Buccaneers are up there, man. I mean, you look at the way Baker Mayfield is playing. I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback right now. He's playing elite stuff right now. He sees everything on the field. I mean, you could really put this guy at maybe at some point top five of quarterbacks. I mean, he's really playing that well right now.
Yeah.
You look at their receiving room, it's a bit banged up, yeah, but you have Mike Evans, who's easily the most reliable receiver in the entire NFL. I mean, 11,000 yards over 11 years. I mean, an incredible statistic. Jerry Rice, the only one to kind of match that at any value. You look at this defense; it's improving. We know what this Bucks defense always meant to this organization, and just keeps improving every year. Um, Now, is it going to be off the charts? No, but I think when it comes to the Bucks, and I look at the other teams in the NFC, they're going to be a lot more consistent. I think their schedule is also favorable to them, and
Hmm.
hence I have them at five right now. Um, I don't want to really go on a tangent here because Yash mentioned a lot of important factors. Though things that I do disagree with him though is I do have the Lions above the Cardinals. I think next year we could see the Cardinals over the Lions. I just don't think the Cardinals have the build that they need right now to be a better team than the Lions. I think you give them a 1 or 2 more years and they build that roster up. I think you have that chance. I just don't see it right now. Jonathan Gannon is doing amazing stuff. I give him credit for it. I just don't see that roster being a better roster than the Lions at this current standpoint.
If
So
I
I do
may,
have the Lions over them.
if I may interject, Akilesh, I'm just curious about that. What specifically on the roster do you not like? Like the
I think their
defense or
defense. I think that from the linebacker standpoint, the Lions are better than them. Safeties wise, Buda Baker is an incredible guy, but you need two safeties. I mean, you look at the Lions, you have a strong safety, you have a free safety that are easily top 10, top 15 right now. The Cardinals don't have that, especially the way Gannon plays. You need that cover two setup to be as perfect as possible. Safeties make it. So I don't believe in that. The cornerback room as well, I'm not too strong on when it comes to the Cardinals. I like their defensive line,
you
surprisingly
don't
enough.
wait, hold up. Not the cornerback room. So you don't like Will Johnson, you don't like Max Melton.
Not like them as in I just don't know what they're made of.
So you think they're too young and inexperienced compared to the Lions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I just right now like the Lions more. Will Johnson's a fantastic corner. I don't know how he fell,
Hmm.
if I'm being honest with you,
Yeah.
but still at I mean I'm still at the point where I'm looking at offensively you got, Tate McBride, you got Marvin Harrison, you got Kyler Murray, who let's be honest has not really shown us, exemplary value as a quarterback, right? So I'm just saying we got to put the brakes a little bit. I think they're gonna get there maybe a year or two, but it's not now. So I do have the Lions over them. You talked about, the Washington Commanders. Now, I think the one that I disagree with you most is surprisingly enough the Seahawks. I think that's where both of us are really off.
Yeah.
For me, I think when I look at the Seahawks, I look at it as this. You talk about them, giving away DK Metcalf, the receiving room not being there. I look at it and say, we're looking at the wrong page. See, why did they fire their offensive coordinator? See, that's a really look. Let's be honest. That's a really good offensive coordinator. I mean, you look at his college success, you look at his NFL success. This man's an
Hmm.
experienced guy. He knows the game really well. So why do you fire him in one season? Geno's had the best season of his career. Simple answer is that's not what the coach wants. The coach is not. I don't think personally, Mike McDonald's the type of guy to pass the ball 80 times and run the ball 20 times. That's what we saw last season. He's a run stuff guy. I'm gonna physically wear you down. I'm gonna run the ball at you. I'm gonna make you feel every single punch. I think that's the overall type of playbook he's trying to set. I think that's what the Seahawks are doing here. They're building their offensive line inside first, bringing in a guy like Sam Darnold, an experienced guy who's not going to be the best quarterback, but he's going to be the perfect quarterback for them. He's going to get the ball to the running back. Kenneth Walker Jr., you talk about him not being, he's being an average running back. I say he hasn't
I
had the
didn't say
chance to
average.
be.
I said compared him to like the Lions
Right, the
running backs.
best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, not the best. I say he hasn't been given the equal chance to be at that level, to execute at that level.
But let me ask
So
you. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, that's it for me. I think Kenneth Walker is as talented as any of these guys that you mentioned, Jameer Gibbs, the Saquon Barkleys. I don't think he's been given the chance to execute. That's all I'm
Hmm.
saying. So I think we here see probably a breakout season for Kenneth Walker. I think that they're going to give a lot more chances for that ball to go, especially the new offensive coordinator. I don't remember his name, but I do remember him being a very run first type of offensive coordinator. So I do see that type of direction. The defense is without a question for me going to improve tenfold. I mean, one system 1 year in, and they were ranked 11th overall, I think, in the NFL in total defense, which is quite incredible considering they were 25th the year before. I think it's going to be an insane improvement. That's why I have them here. I have them going 9-8 in my schedule. I could be wrong. I don't mind being wrong, but I just think that from a coaching standpoint, this team is gonna be at the ultimate level, and slowly the players will catch up. So I think that's why I had the Seahawks at 9. The 10, the Niners, I agree with you on. Bears, slightly disagree. I don't think Ben Johnson's going to be able to execute in his first year. I think next year, definitely, we're going to see him make the playoffs. I just don't think this year I'm as high on the Bears. I don't really believe in Matt Eberflus being their no, I'm sorry, not Matt Eberflus. Who's their defensive coordinator this year?
Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen. I just don't believe in him much personally. He might be a great guy. Just don't believe in the system overall. I think they're a very young defense. They're very raw. So I just don't see it being a playoff bound team right now.
Hmm.
I think Falcons to the Cowboys, I pretty much agreed with you on. Falcons don't really have the most favorable schedule. Panthers and Saints speak for themselves. The Cowboys, I mean, the laughing stock of the NFL. When you look at the Giants, for me, I do want to mention this. People have been really hating on Joe Shane. I was one of the very few people, proudly to say this or humbly to say this, that kind of like I've had a soft spot for him. If I'm being honest with you, the moment he got hired by the Giants, I was really high on him. I really loved him as the general manager. I mean, Saquon, everybody was like, "What are you doing?" I think that was the right move because you look at Saquon's career; he's going to last another 5 years, maybe, right,
Hmm.
give or take. I think the Giants are looking at a 10-year, kind of plan right now, and I think you're developing that. Jackson Dart's looking really nice. You have Jameis Winston, another good leader. Honestly, you got Russell Wilson, as you mentioned, very underrated. Honestly, he had a bad stint with the Broncos, but he's been a guy that's dependable, right?
Correct.
So I think from that standpoint, I think the Giants are improving. Malik Neighbors, without question. You look at this defense. That's a defensive line of the ages now that you're building with Abdul
Yeah.
Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, just a monster of a defensive line. Linebacker unit, maybe it's a bit soft spoken, but still, I think in this day and age, you need that type of dime defense. And I think they're building a dime defense overall. So I believe in the direction that the Giants are going.
If I may add
Overall,
to that, I want to add to that real quick. And I
go
mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the Giants. Um, This was a team 2 years ago when Saquon Barkley left that we were looking at them as one of the worst rosters in football. And we were criticizing Joe Shane a lot, rightfully so because of the Saquon Barkley situation, right?
yeah,
And what did he do in that time in that standpoint? What did he do at probably his lowest point as the Giants GM? He put out one of
execute
the best draft
drafts.
classes that he's
Yeah,
yeah, I mean Tyrone Tracy, Andrew Phillips, and then why am I forgetting the safety's name? Tyler Nubin. All three of them in that exact same draft, and they played phenomenal last year. So he
yeah.
deserves a lot of credit for turning
Not just
around this
that.
Giants team.
And then this year he executed even better draft, which
Yeah.
is kind of insane, right? So I think Brian Dable's a fantastic coach. I think everybody knows that. Is just at this point is the roster ready? The
Hmm.
offensive line still I'm really not high on. I don't
Yeah.
like that offensive line at all,
Yeah.
but I think it's something that can improve. You do have guys like Evan O'Neal, like talented guys, so I believe in it. Do I
And Evan
believe in it
Neal's
as
moving to
much as
guard this year, it's too. So I mean, that could be a good transition for him.
yeah, so we don't know. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I believe in them as much as the other 9 teams that I have ahead of them?
Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of have them at right now. Now we'll move on to kind of the awards, the playoff type predictions here. Um,
Oh,
so
sh
off the bat for the MVP, I think Lamar Jackson's got it this year. Last year, I mean, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 900 plus rushing yards, 4,000 plus passing yards. I mean, you're looking at a guy that could do it all. And I think Lamar Jackson will have another MVP this season. My only thing is, he has to win it. This is the year for Lamar Jackson to win it. I think right now he has the pressure more than anybody else to win it all. So, will he do that? We'll see. Offensive Player of the Year, I'm gonna go Saquon. I think after last season, you can expect similar, or if not same results this season. I think he's going to be the first player to go 2,000 yards on back-to-back seasons. I really do think it's
Whoa.
going to be Saquon. Yeah, I really do think so. I mean, Because when you look at this offensive line, it doesn't matter. You could put me in the offensive line, and it would be one of the best offensive line units. And I'm a scrub. Like,
I don't know, but I don't know if you'd be able to put you in the offensive line, considering their quota for offensive line is 6'6", 330 pounds.
I mean, that's what they're saying, but they can change it up to 5'2". I mean, at some point they really could. I'm not 5'2". I'm close to 6. Like I'm
Yeah.
around 5'11", give or take. So, I mean, although, man, I am right now what one yeah, I think I'm around like 150 right now. So, 200 and I'll be good.
Yeah.
Um, Defensive player of the year, I think it's Micah. I think we're going to see a version of Micah Parsons we've never seen. I got him getting like 18 and a half sacks this season. I mean, I think we're going to see a Micah Parsons we've never seen before. A revenge motive, a non-happy Lawrence Taylor type, not same level, Lawrence Taylor type, like aggressiveness, fear dominating guy. I think we're going to see that Micah Parsons this year. Whenever we've seen these trades, right? You can even talk about Xavier McKinney, anybody. They just go after it like anything. So that's there. Um, Offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. Obviously, I didn't edit. I apologize. But the offensive rookie of the year I have right now for me, I think it's Ashton Genty. I agree with Yash from the Raiders. I just really like the way he plays. Honestly, I don't have I mean, I mentioned last year that, or coming into the draft, that I don't have him as high as people talk about him, which is still true to this day. But I just think that from a standpoint of what the Raiders have, he's going to get the ball a lot. And I think he's going to be really useful off that edge from that standpoint. Defensive rookie of the year, honestly, I really don't have a pick at this point. I'm not like insanely Travis Hunter maybe, but like right now he's injured and he's banged up. We don't know where he's going to go. So I'm not too high on him right now. I really don't know who to be high on at this point. I mean, you have Jahad Barron on the Broncos, Yash, which is an interesting pick, but I don't think I really have a pick on defensive rookie of the year, so I kind of left it open. Coach of the year for me, Jim Harbaugh. This is his time. I think we're going to see the Chargers. I mean, I put them, I think, around 5 or 6 in my ranking. They could go even higher. They could honestly go even higher. I think the Chargers this season are really going to pull off something magical. How they do it is going to be a storybook ending, hopefully. So I think Jim Harbaugh is going to get the Coach of the Year. Come back as Player of the Year, it's got to be Aiden Hutchinson. I put the Bills. I don't know why. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is. You talk about last season. This man should have got Defensive Player of the Year. 8 sacks in what, 4 games? I mean, he was unbelievable. To go get injured like that, and then to credit to the entire Lions front office for an egregious injury like that to be coming back this quickly, and with everybody else saying that he's better than he's ever been. I mean, just credit to that man, right? So Aiden Hutchinson for me, assistant coach of the year. Me and Yash agree on Brian Flores. I mean, time to give this guy his flowers, right? I mean, he hates the NFL. The NFL hates him, but he's dominating. So credit to him how he's going about it. Now, from a playoff standpoint, it's going to be the Rams against Lions, Vikings, Commanders, and Packers, Buccaneers for the NFC wild card. I got the Rams over the Lions. I think it's going to be a revenge game for Matthew Stafford. I think he's going to air it out like it's nobody's business. He's got Devontae Adams. He's got Puka Nakua now. You got a decently reliable offensive line. We didn't talk about Kyron Williams, the ultimate back, I think, in the NFL right now. A guy who can pass catch, guy who can run the ball. I think that offense is going to be insane. You look at this defense more than anything else, it's going to be so young and tenacious. It really reminds me of those 80s Niners vibes in the beginning of the years. You talk about an offense that's elite, right? And you also talk about a really young defense. I get that vibe from the Rams, so I think they're going to beat the Lions here. Vikings or the Commanders, I just see that overall from a roster standpoint, the Vikings are a much better team. The Commanders, they don't have the run game, as you mentioned, Josh, which was really their bread and butter. I do have some questions in regards to Dan Quinn's success in the playoffs,
Hmm.
even as an assistant. So I don't know how that's going to go. So I do have the Vikings or the Commanders, Packers or the Bucks. I think this is going to be the closest game of any of the wild cards that we have here.
If
I
that's the
think that
matchup, I agree, actually.
I think for me, the Packers are going to take the edge here, but it's going to be like a 24-23 type win. It's going to be really close. I think Jordan Love is going to have, a very consistent season. which I think is what everybody wants out of him at this point. This upcoming year, I think Baker Mayfield is gonna have himself, a really tough challenge because again, I'm mentioning this again, we're gonna see a Micah that we've never seen before. So that's where I have them. Um, from the AFC side, unfortunately, I do have the Chiefs over the Chargers. I just don't see the Chargers right now beating a team like the Chiefs who are so playoff oriented, right? They just know how to win in these playoff games, these crunch time games. So I do have the Chiefs over the Chargers right now. The Ravens over the Texans. I just don't think the Texans as a team are going to be able to compete with the Ravens. I think the Ravens overall, you look at Derrick Henry, hasn't fallen off. Lamar Jackson, MVP level. Zay Flowers, you got speedy receivers who can catch the ball, who are really good at what they do, and you got a defense that just never shuts down. So I just don't see the Texans beating them. Um, I do have the Broncos over the Steelers. We got to mention this. Steelers are going to make the playoffs, but we are coming to a point in time where Mike Tomlin's job is at real question for the first time. It really is. I mean, people have talked about it every year. I'm saying this year it really matters. This man hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. He's had winning seasons after winning season, but do I just want to be a guy who can make the playoffs or do I want to win the whole damn thing?
Hmm.
I think at this point we really have to choose, and I would say the whole thing. And I think at this point, Sean Payton, that defense more than anything else is going to dominate. From at that point, when you move on to the NFC divisional round, I think the Eagles edge out the Packers. Again, that's going to be a barely. I think it's going to be a defensive master show. I think for the first time, Saquon's going to have maybe like only 50 rushing yards. I really do believe so because I think that defensive line is really going to lock it down.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the Eagles edge it. Just how based on how tough they are, it's going to be at their home stadium. We know how dominant the Eagles are when it comes to playoff home games. I mean,
Hmm.
San Francisco 49ers had 4 quarterbacks, so we never know. The Rams over the Vikings, I think it's going to be not exactly a close game. I think the Rams will handily beat them here. I think when with JJ McCarthy being a young guy, really no playoff experience. I mean, he's been in that big moment of a national championship. I'll give you that. But I think here with this, the Rams' overall experience, they've been through this. They know what it means to go through this. I think Sean McVay knows the Vikings more than anybody else. You look at the Rams versus Vikings record over the past 4 years, it's been clear as day. The Rams have always had the Vikings edge. So I think here the Rams will take down the Vikings. And I think it's going to be an offensive shootout. I have the Bills over the Broncos just like last year. It's going to be much closer this year, but I think the Bills just edge out the Broncos barely. I think the Ravens over the Chiefs is probably the most interesting matchup in the
Yeah, that
entire
was
playoff
intrigued by
bracket
that.
that I have here. I think that we assume because of the fact that the Chiefs have just always been there. At this point, I think the Ravens have figured it out. I really do. I don't. I think this is the one year that we see Patrick Mahomes, sleep in his bed in the middle of January instead of February. I think I just think it's time that it's all wrapped up. Travis Kelsey's getting married. He's moving on with his life. By the way, congrats on that. If you're watching the show, which would be crazy to think you have your own podcast and you would be watching this podcast as well. But hey, who knows? I just don't. I think he's too old right now to make as much of an impact as he used to. Obviously, the roster is people have been talking about it like it's a magical roster. I don't believe so. I think it's a very similar roster to what was there last year. I don't see a reliable receiver. I I really don't see anything offensively that's gonna make me say wow. Other than the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes, defensively they're still what they are. They're still a good team, but I just don't see them being masterful. I do have the Ravens beating those Chiefs. I think from a roster standpoint, from an execution standpoint, they will beat them finally. The AFC and NFC Championship, Ravens over Bills, I think people can agree on. I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for the Rams over the Eagles. I'll explain the pick. Last year, when we look at the Eagles from a playoff standpoint, Jalen Hurts probably had one of the best playoffs stands, right? As a quarterback, I think that we've seen in a long time from a playoff standpoint. His worst game was against the Rams. The Rams have always had a number on these Eagles. Last year, the Rams had a number on the Eagles in the regular season. They had it in the playoffs. They've had it for many years. This
Hmm.
defense gets after the quarterback like anything. They were the only team really to stomp that offensive line. I think the Rams will get to the Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have himself a really bad day. Again, the cornerback room on the Rams is still something slightly doubtful. I'll give you that, but still, I think it's going to be the time that the Rams will take down the Eagles. Ravens over the Bills. I mean, let's be honest. Mark Andrews is not going to miss two-point attempts. It won't happen.
Imagine
So
if that actually happens this year.
it won't happen, man. It won't. You
I'm just
know,
saying,
Josh, in
imagine
my
if it
life,
does. I like that clip will be like posted everywhere.
in my life, I don't think I've ever been more, you know, I've had any more empathy for an opposing player than I did that day.
Hmm.
I mean, that for me was soul crushing because
Yeah.
Mark Andrews is like, I think he's probably the most underrated tight end, really. Like
I
every
go more
year,
overhated if anything, but yeah, I agree.
I mean, every year we don't. No one puts him in the top five. They always edge him out. He's either 6 or 7, which is insane to me because his production has been so consistent and linear.
Hmm.
So you know, I think the Rams it's gonna be a R versus R, Ravens and Rams in the Super Bowl at SF, and I think the Rams are gonna go to LA going crying because I think the Ravens are gonna win the entire Super Bowl. I think Lamar Jackson is gonna solidify himself as a Hall of Fame quarterback, as one of the great quarterbacks with this Super Bowl win. I think you have the Derrick Henrys, you have the receivers that you can rely on, you have a reliable defense. I think the Harbaugh brothers are gonna bring another championship back home. I think it's the Ravens' time. I'm gonna end it there. Um,
That's a very, very interesting prediction
yeah,
list. I'm not even mad at any of it. Like I think you gave some
right.
great explanations. I disagree on a few things and we'll get to that. But I
Okay,
mean, it's a bold prediction. Unfortunately, my prediction is not nearly as fun as yours, and that kind of
clearly,
crushes me. Um, if we're talking about before the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, actually my predictions were kind of a lot more interesting. Unfortunately, so if you want to blame anyone on why my predictions are so
Jerry
boring,
Jones.
blame the Packers, blame Jerry Jones, blame Micah Parsons. Don't blame me, please. But as far as this goes, I left my MVP and defensive player for later. I wanted to hear a little bit of Akilesh's explanation. And when Akilesh was talking about Saquon Barkley, I said, wow. I put out a point of exclamation. And I didn't actually say that because I was surprised that he made that. I was actually surprised that he and I agreed on something. I do agree that Saquon Barkley is going to be the first player to have back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons. And I also think that because this year's quarterback room is so open with Mahomes struggling with the fact that I still find it hard with every now and then the Lamar Jackson's inconsistencies and the fact that Josh Allen has for some reason some voter fatigue by the MVP voters. I find it hard to believe that someone is going to be winning an MVP as a quarterback with just how weird this year is as far as quarterbacks. If you have a guy as dominant as it is. So I'm going to go bold and I'm going to say that Saquon Barkley not only wins the Offensive Player of the Year, but he also wins the MVP. And I think that this is the year, if any, that a running back wins an MVP just because of how open this year is as far as quarterbacks go. As far as Defensive Player of the Year goes, I was on the fence about it, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be Micah Parsons with the Packers. The reason why I'm a little concerned with might not be Micah Parsons is someone put out a good point about the fact that he's in a division with probably the best offensive lines in the game as far as just one division. The Bears are the fourth best offensive line in the league. The Detroit Lions, if I'm not mistaken, had the ninth, and the Vikings at the 13th. Um, so he's in a division where six of his games are playing against teams who have a better opportunity to neutralize him than most teams. What he does have the advantage of is playing in a very versatile scheme that helps him as far as
No,
just
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to say this. Micah Parsons is one on one.
Yeah,
It
well,
doesn't
I was
matter
getting
who he
to.
goes against.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah,
doesn't matter who he goes against.
exactly. I was about to say that. So, yeah, I mean, he plays in a very versatile scheme that perfectly adapts to his strengths. You got guys who can help him get open sacks, number one, which help inflate his numbers. And two, he plays linebacker. and he has the opportunity of playing defensive line, which perfectly helps the Packers as far as showing he can be involved in every sort of aspect of the game, which is exactly what the Packers need. So from that angle, I think, yeah, Micah Parsons perfectly fits what the Packers need as far as just that next step. This reminds me, and I was telling Akhilesh earlier, this reminds me of the Khalil Mack trade back in 2018. Khalil Mack would have easily won Defensive Player in the Year that year had it not been for some man by the name of, what was his name? Akhilesh, do you remember what 99 on the Los Angeles Rams was? I think his name was like Aaron Donald or something. Like, that guy had 20 and a half goddamn sacks that year. So when you have a guy like Aaron Donald, there's a reason why Khalil Mack didn't win. But Khalil Mack had a great year. And I'll put this out there just for the sake of our fans. If you like Khalil Mack as much as Akhilesh and I do, please go and watch the 2018 NFL player rankings. Number 3, I think it was Khalil Mack, was ranked that year. Please watch the video on that. It is one of my favorite videos I've ever seen the NFL do. The music was so great, but just the highlight reel just goes to show how good of a player Khalil Mack was in 2018. I think Micah Parsons might have a similar year with the Packers. As far as offensive rookie and defensive rookie of the year, I went Ashton Jeanty. I think Akhilesh kind of spoke it out pretty well for what Ashton Jeanty is going to be. Pete Carroll runs very well. If there's one concern I have about Ashton Jeanty, it's behind the fact that he has a bad offensive line. But I do think that Ashton Jeanty has shown even in college that he can perform really well against bad offensive lines. And I think the scheme will help him from that angle. As far as Jahdae Barron goes, I went back and forth on this. This came down to 3 cornerbacks for me: Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson, and Benjamin Morrison. Travis Hunter, I was interested in putting him here, but he seems to be a backup cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, Akhilesh talked about how we don't really know what Travis Hunter's role is going to be at any position for that, so it's hard to even put him as offensive rookie of the year. But Jahdae Barron has the opportunity of playing alongside Patrick Surtain, which helps him a lot in this situation. He has the ability of playing nickelback, which has become a increasing role in the NFL. And Akhilesh and I have talked about this with guys like Trent McDuffie or Cooper DeJean. And I think Jahdae Barron has a similar role as far as his versatility, being able to be a great tackler, being able to be great as far as a ball hawk, being able to blitz, being able to play safety cornerback. That versatility is something that's better day one. So while I do think Will Johnson and Benjamin Morrison have higher potential, I think especially Benjamin Morrison, with how highly I think of him, especially with the fact that he's going to get starting opportunities, which I didn't think he was going to get early on when I made this prediction. I think Benjamin Morrison, he's good, but I just don't know if he's going to step up the same way right off the bat that Jahdae Barron is, because of the respective tools that day one Jahdae Barron can use to contribute to this Broncos team. And the fact that he's in a better defensive scheme with Vance Joseph, a better fit to me than Benjamin Morrison, I see him being the defensive rookie of the year. As far as coach of the year, I went back and forth on this. It came down to me just the criteria of what usually voters vote for. And for that reason, I think that Jonathan Gannon is going to win if we're talking about my own predictions. The guy is the only coach we're talking about is emerging from being a team that wasn't in the playoffs to being in the playoffs. It's very, quite simple for me from that criteria. So for me, I got Jonathan Gannon being the coach of the year. Comeback player of the year, I originally had Rashee Rice, funny or not. And then he got suspended. Obviously, we didn't know about what that suspension would look like, but he got suspended 6 games, so I'm not going to put him there. But he was coming off a torn ACL, and I do think he's going to have a strong finish to the year, and we'll talk more about that later on. But I have Aiden Hutchinson. He seems like the clear prime candidate for winning the comeback player of the year. He had a season-ending injury last year. He is one of the best defensive linemen in the game without a doubt, and he's going to win that. I think Akhilesh mentioned everything I was going to say on Brian Flores, so I don't need to say much about that. But like I said before, the Vikings have a lot of platoon defensive players, and what stands out is how well Brian Flores has developed them, from guys like Ivan Pace, Josh Metellus, as far as how versatile they are, Byron Murphy. You add in guys now like Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. I think this defense is going to be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league next year. And that's a testament to how good Brian Flores is as a defense coordinator. As far as the playoff predictions, Eagles over Commanders. Eagles just better at everything than the Commanders. The Commanders had an opportunity to be able to make Jaden Daniels have a revenge game as far as just putting the pieces around him. But this Eagles team is so good that you have to have the offseason of the offseason in order to be able to beat this Eagles team. And the Commanders came nowhere close to that. So as good as Jaden Daniels might be in this game, he might even make this game like competitive. It might be a close game, but at the end of the day, the Eagles are just too good for me not to say that they don't win this game. I got the Buccaneers or the Cardinals. Everything that Akhilesh mentioned as far as concerns he has for the Cardinals, I don't think they're major concerns, like I said before, but I do think that those concerns are going to be things that the Buccaneers take advantage. As far as their linebackers, Bucky Irving is going to have a game. As far as their young youth in the cornerback position in the secondary, Baker Mayfield has two veterans at the wide receiver position in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They will take advantage of that. Defensively, where Kyler Murray just runs and doesn't throw the ball where need be, I think guys like Hassan Reddick and all can take advantage. Remember, Hassan Reddick played with Kyler Murray when he was developing. He knows his tendencies from that angle. If there's one question mark, it will be the fact that how well does this young cornerback room for the Buccaneers adapt to how well Marvin Harrison plays? But I think Marvin Harrison's the only weapon, so I think they'll focus mostly on Marvin Harrison, not to mention the fact that they have Antoine Winfield as a safety. So if they need extra help, they can go there. So I think the Buccaneers will easily win that game. The Packers or the Rams. As Akhilesh mentioned, he's got the Rams really highly. And if it was any other team, I could see the Rams moving on to the next round. Also, you have the question about Matthew Stafford, which just still rings in my head here. But if we're talking about just this Packers versus the Ram team, the one concern I have about the Rams is their offensive line. And when you're playing against a defensive line that has Luke Van Ness, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Micah Parsons, to me, that's the X factor of the game. And for me, that's the reason why I have the Packers moving on. I just think that at the end of the day, I have more trust in Jordan Love as far as can he stay on the field this year as a whole? And I have more faith in this game with the defensive line than I have with the Rams offensive line. So I have the Packers moving on. The Chiefs over the Steelers, I don't really think I need to say much. The Chiefs are easily the better team there. The Ravens over the Chargers, same thing. Everything the Chargers are good at, Ravens are better. Justin Herbert hasn't exactly played well in the postseason, and he's playing against a Ravens defense that is almost as good, if not better, than the Texans defense that beat Justin Herbert last year. It's quite simple from that angle. The Broncos over the Texans, I'm really, really high on this Broncos team. Their defense is superb. I think Bo Nix will take an even better step next year, and he has Sean Payton to help him. I really like the run game. Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins have been great when they're on the field. Look out for R.J. Harvey. I think John Gruden made a great breakdown of how good R.J. Harvey is going to be in this system. Reminds me of a lot of Mike Bell or Pierre Thomas back in the day, if you guys remember, with Sean Payton. So I think that this Broncos team is going to really take a next step, and I think that they're favored against this Texans team. If there's one thing I can think about is the fact that this secondary of the Texans might cause Bo Nix to struggle. But at the end of the day, I think that Sean Payton's enough of a schemer as far as he'll use this run game to the advantage against a Texans run defense that's just it doesn't really resonate with me whatsoever. As far as the rest of this goes, so as we move on to the divisional round, there are four matchups. As Akhilesh alluded to, he thought that the Ravens would beat the Chiefs. I'll start off with that one. I disagree with that one. As much as I do think that the Ravens are going to be better this year, another year of Derrick Henry, another year with that defense being more familiar and better on paper. At the end of the day, I think that at the end of the day, this Chiefs defense is older. They're better. They're more mature. And at the end of the day, this Ravens team. Sorry?
I disagree with that. I don't think they're more, just because they're older, I don't think it's more mature nor better.
I certainly think so, because you talk about the improvement that this Chiefs team has had from the first time that they won the Super Bowl in 2022 with this young core.
That's not the point. That's not the point. Hold on. That's not the point. My point here is simply this. Were they able to stop the run in the Super Bowl? Yeah. they
Okay.
were able to stop the run in the Super Bowl, which
Sure.
is what the Ravens' bread and butter is. They couldn't stop the pass. Lamar Jackson had 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, probably had the best passing season of any quarterback last season. And he's only going to get better from here on out. You talk about you talk about a mature defense. I'm talking about a mature offense.
That's
They've
what,
had-
and see, that's where I slightly disagree with you because although I do think the players are mature, I don't think the play calling is. I don't think that Todd Monken and Jim Harbaugh game plan well enough against the Chiefs coaching staff to be able to set up this team against a defense that with more and more experience
you can't
is
tell
going to
me that
minimize
the
the mistakes that they had in past years against the
Look,
Ravens.
but that's my point. That's my point. We talk about this whole past year stuff. I'm talking about right now. Last season is the only season that I'll take into account.
Okay.
Look at the previous season before then, the AFC Championship. I'll give it to you. That
Sure.
offensive game plan was horrible. This past one, no, it wasn't.
Wait,
We-
what?
we-
Yeah, I
this-
said it was. Yeah, it was. I said it was good.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's getting better. That's my entire point.
And
When
my
it comes to the Chiefs right now, see, Josh, the point is as much as a magician Patrick Mahomes is, and as much as they've had probably the most insane luck of any team in the history of the NFL last
Sure.
season, the underlying factor is this. The team is getting old. Defensively, it's getting much more old. It's not of the same quality. Chris Jones is definitely.
Chris Jones is the only player though that is getting really old. George Karlaftis is in the prime of his career.
but that's
Trent
my
McDuffie's
point.
in the prime of his career.
that's my
Brian
point.
Cook is in the
That's-
prime of his career.
No. But that's my point. If Chris Jones is getting old, he's the bread and butter of that defense.
He's still not missed a step though at all.
That's fair. My only point is when you look at the Ravens defense, Roquan Smith, he is not getting any slower. He's only
Okay.
getting better. Kyle Hamilton just got signed as I think the most money for any safety in NFL history.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
look at that defense from a cornerback standpoint, they have a far better cornerback room. Although the Chiefs on that end definitely have the upper hand. They have a insane cornerback room right now in their staff.
Mhm.
They don't have a good safety room. The Ravens beat them out there. Linebackers, no question, the Ravens have the best linebackers probably in the NFL. You could argue that. Defensive line-wise, Matabuke, they have a lot of talented young edge rushers. Don't forget the guy out of Marshall that I had really high ranked when it came to the NFL draft this season. And then you look at the Ravens' offensive line. The offensive line is only getting better. Derrick Henry, no one knows how to stop him. Lamar Jackson with that combo, we know it's elite already.
Those are a lot of equal positions though, and I'll get to that. But go ahead. Yeah.
From a running back standpoint, the Chiefs don't have anything close to it. Travis Kelce is the most reliable receiver on that team, which says a lot considering the fact that the guy's, 36, 35 years old or something like that?
See, all of that on paper makes sense, but if that was
Right.
the case, we'd have other opportunities to sit here and say, yes, the Ravens would beat the Chiefs, and they haven't. My whole thing is there are
But
two
that's my-
instances. There are two instances. Number one, you mentioned the defense, right?
Right.
When it comes to the Ravens defense, there are a few things that I'm going to interject with as far as I don't believe in the cornerback room as much as most other people do. I think it's still a good cornerback room, but I think we're underestimating the Chiefs' receiver room at being able to handle the Ravens specifically, right? And
Josh, I've come to a point where it's deservedly so. The Chiefs' receiving room since Tyreek Hill's absence have been nothing but trash.
agreed, agreed. But
We
which
can
team?
talk about
But which team do
Rashee
they
Rice
step
and-
up? But which team do they step up against? Time in and time out, which team do they step up against?
Offensively?
Yeah.
Offensively?
Baltimore, yes.
No.
Yes.
You can't tell me the AFC Championship was the Kansas City Chiefs stepped up offensively.
Xavier
That's
Worthy.
insane. That's an insane statement.
Xavier Worthy had 2 touchdowns last year, if I'm not mistaken. Rashee Rice had how many yards? 100 yards last year in the regular season in week 1. That's
What
number
matters
one.
though? What matters though? Are we talking about the regular season or are we talking about the playoffs? Two
I'm
different
talk-
games.
Well, that's the other part. The other part I'd bring into this is the fact that at the end of the day, what really wins playoff games? 2 things. Quarterbacks who minimize mistakes, and Lamar Jackson does not minimize mistakes in the postseason, and we've seen this time and time out again, and coaching. I would give Lamar Jackson the benefit of the doubt to a lot of teams as to say, okay, fine, he can minimize his plays on this game against this team based on the fact that he's still Lamar Jackson. But you combine that with the coaching staff that the Ravens have, which every year seems to get worse and worse when it comes to their decision making. Specifically, Jim Harbaugh.
This is
I
my
just
problem.
cannot put them ahead.
This is my problem. This is my problem with most people. With most people, see, this is a less of a how do I describe it? This is kind of a less version of the insane amount of accusations against Mike Tomlin. This is what every year anybody does. The moment that playoff time comes, man, Harbaugh can't do anything. He doesn't know how to coach his team properly. He only knows the regular season and the playoffs. He's a bum. What kind of statement is?
I'm not even going to say that he's a bum, but I'm going to certainly say that against
Look,
better
Yash, come
coaches.
on.
No, against certain coaches, and it's not a bad thing to be outplayed by Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time, but he gets pretty much chopped down every single time
This is my
he's played Andy Reid
When are we
for the
going to put
last
the blame on
decade.
the players? When are we going to put the blame on the players?
Okay, so let's put the blame on the players.
Lamar Jackson in the playoffs is not a good quarterback.
So let's put
He
the
was
blame
never
on
a
the
good quarterback. My only point in this case is this. Patrick Mahomes has probably the worst offense that he's had over the duration of his career at this current standpoint.
See, that's where I disagree with you.
No.
I think that last year was the worst year that the Chiefs had as far as offensively overall, due to a combination of things, whether that was Mahomes' own poor play, whether that was Travis Kelce diminishing, whether that was the several injuries that people forget to talk about in their receiving room. What people are forgetting is that Rashee Rice is no longer a rookie. He was a second-year player who, in the 2 games that he was there with the Chiefs,
How many games is he missing this season?
6 games. But he's going to be back for the postseason. This is not this first 6 games. And that's where I disagree with you.
What improvements did they make to their offensive line this season?
No, but that's where I disagree with you. Hold up. Let's start off with the receiving room. I'll get to the offensive line.
Go ahead.
You talked about the receiving room, and as far as Rashee Rice being suspended the first 6 games, that is fine. If that is anything, it gives Rashee Rice, who's coming off a torn ACL, more time to rest up, right? Get in rhythm for the postseason where he can contribute more. There are a lot of players who, when they miss the first portion of a season, they step up in the postseason because they have full health. That, to me, is
their second season, though. Their second season after having a below-average rookie season.
Rashee Rice had a below-average rookie season.
He did. That definitely did not go to the standard that everybody expected him to. Let's be completely honest.
Rashee Rice overachieved, if anything, from his rookie season. Oh yes.
He either was there for me or he was slightly below. That's what I see Rashee Rice as. He was not anything exceptional, nothing to write home about. He
might not have been exceptional, but he certainly exceeded expectations for being
for me, here's the thing. When I looked at the receiving room last year, Marvin Harrison and then Rashee Rice. That's how I saw it. I thought this guy could go up to the level of Marvin Harrison. Now the ACL injury, I'll give you that, but at the same time,
so you're telling me that a guy who in 4 games last year, who had almost 300 receiving yards, in his rookie season, 938 receiving yards, that's underachieving.
No, it's not an overachievement for me. I expected this guy to get 1,000 yards last season because he was that amazing at college.
And he was on pace to in 4 games. He had 300 yards in 4 games.
No, but my point is against who?
Against who? The Ravens, the Chiefs, or the Ravens, the Chargers. Let's look at the Chiefs' schedule.
Okay.
I'll bring this up.
Chargers was, first of all, okay, if we're going to go based off that, I remember a 50-yard touchdown on a play where the cornerback literally broke his leg. I'm okay with that.
But if we're going to give that to that, if we're going to give that, we have to take in consideration, number one, Chargers and Ravens have very similar schemes, number one. Number two,
that's different.
Number two, we can talk about the fact that both teams, I'm not sitting here and saying that the Ravens don't have a good cornerback room, but they are inconsistent themselves. I would say so a lot more than Rashee Rice and that Chiefs receiving room. And to me,
but that's a different situation, and I'll explain it. Simply, it's this. The defense last year, first time under their new defensive coordinator. In the beginning of the season, it's going to be rough, as it is with any new defensive coordinator.
Sure.
It takes time to adjust to a new system. You can't tell me this. The last half of the season, going into the playoffs, the number 1 team defensively in the NFL was the Ravens. No team was better than that.
Absolutely not.
Cornerback room, from a Ravens standpoint, was top 5, if not the best in the NFL, going to the end of the half of last season.
And they still lost. And they still lost the divisional round to the Buffalo Bills due to a combination of the factors that I just mentioned. That was inconsistency.
This is my problem. If Mark Andrews got that 2-point conversion, we would be talking about a completely different story right now.
We would, but I would still sit here and talk about these instances that avoid them from beating the Chiefs. This is not the Buffalo Bills we're talking about. If this is the Buffalo Bills, then that would be a different argument. but this is the Chiefs. The
Look at
Chiefs
the
are the
roster,
team.
though.
No, the Chiefs
Yeah.
have a different standard, man. They like this. This is what we're
And
talking
they have
about.
not got to it since 20. Like they've not. Last year was the lowest point they've ever had.
They've
And
been to 3 straight
unfortunately,
Super Bowls, man. Even if they're lower, even if they're getting worse and worse
Josh,
in each Super
last
Bowl.
season, and I'll go on record for saying this.
Sure.
Last season was the worst season by any team that ever made it to a Super Bowl.
Fair.
The worst season. And
Fair,
let me
that's
ask
fair,
this.
but
Let-
you
wait,
still
wait, wait, let me finish. Let me add to
Okay,
this.
sure.
The reason why the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl last season
Mhm.
was because 4 defensive linemen killed the living life out of Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
That's it. You
Sure.
don't even need to mention the fact that the 2 corners were rookies. You want to talk about the receiving room? Let's mention the fact that 2 corners were rookies. Patrick Mahomes gave up a pick 6 in the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce was non-existent. Right now, Travis Kelce, I have a lot of respect for him. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame, easily a top 5, top 3 tight end of all time. He's not the guy anymore. He
Oh.
can't be the guy because of his age. That's really all it is.
Can I ask you a question? Who is
Wait,
the
hold on,
defensive
let me
coordinator
finish,
of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Huh?
Who is the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Fangio.
Right. Do you know what Patrick Mahomes' stats versus the Vic Fangio-led Denver Broncos, where when he played them twice a year, then against the Miami Dolphins, do you know what his stats were?
I don't really care, but okay, go ahead.
Sure. Patrick Mahomes averaged 230 yards per game against Vic Fangio in those 4 years. Okay?
Okay, what does that
Those
do?
being inflated with 2 games where he had above 300 yards, and that was in Vic Fangio's first season. Okay? So you give Vic Fangio now one of the best defenses on paper with a front four like that. I'm not saying that that means that Patrick Mahomes should have been excused from playing the way he did last year, but certainly that's not all that surprising.
See,
You
but that's what
compare
you're
that
missing
Vic
my point.
Fangio defense to
Okay.
a Zach Orr-led defense, it's not the same thing whatsoever.
You're missing my point, though. That's what. See, you're rushing into it. You're missing my point.
Sure.
My point is not the fact that Vic Fangio's brilliance is better than Zach Orr's brilliance or any of that stuff.
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes could have dominated. Who gives? If you're talking about Vic Fangio Broncos, come on. The man had nothing on him when it came to the Broncos side.
Mhm.
Patrick Surtain wasn't there when he was.
No,
even
he
if
was
there,
last
it
year.
was
Last
rookie
year.
season.
Yeah.
It was his rookie season where Vic Fangio was there.
Sure.
And let's be honest, he had a tremendous impact on them because obviously that defense is rolling.
Yeah.
My only point when it comes to Patrick Mahomes is this. The reason why, apologies guys, I'm just getting calls again and again. The ultimate reason why they lost the Super Bowl was number one, the receiving room wasn't dependable. I'll give
Sure.
it to you, Rashid Rice wasn't there. Now you mentioned about Rashid Rice for about 8 minutes straight. Give me another player that's as dependable as him, number one. Number two, you look at the offensive line, tell me an insane improvement that's come onto that offensive line unit that wasn't there in last year's Super Bowl, that the Eagles completely dominated with 4 defensive linemen. You talk about Vic Fangio having one of the best defensive, I don't know what you want to call it, defensive rosters in the NFL. The defensive line didn't change. That defensive line was scrutinized like anything when it came to the Buccaneers and the Eagles in the playoffs. Now you give Vic Fangio this, and then we say, oh, Patrick Mahomes has always been 10,000 times better. He just had a bad showing. That's not the point. Vic Fangio is a mastermind, so let's not discredit him when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number three.
That was the point I was trying to make, though, when I said mentioned Vic Fangio.
Okay, but number 3, my entire point in all of this is this. We say Rashid Rice is amazing. I say he's amazing. I'm just saying he didn't get to that standard that I thought he would get to last season. I
Okay.
apologize for saying underachieved. I'm wrong there. I would say he didn't achieve as much as I wanted him to. Not insanely underachieved. It's a different story. The ultimate point for me is this. When it comes to the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, like Peyton Manning, I relate this example a lot. This is very similar to a Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady scenario. Brady has beat this guy again and again and again. When it came to the 2006 playoffs, Manning broke the code on. This is the year Lamar Jackson breaks the code on him. Why? His offensive line is better. He has that running back. That's probably the most reliable running back in the NFL right now. From an injury standpoint, from an
Sure.
anything standpoint.
Sure.
He as a quarterback is at his best level. He is the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Okay.
Far none. Maybe Josh Allen is
Yeah.
close to him, but I feel personally he's right there.
Sure.
Now, you look at the receiving room. 10,000 times, I'm telling you, the receiving room on a Ravens roster right now is far more reliable than it is on the Chiefs roster.
Okay.
2 years ago, maybe not so. Right now, that's definitely the case. The defense,
So let me ask you this: you would trust Rashad Bateman, past his prime DeAndre Hopkins, who the Chiefs were willing to let go,
Yeah, it's true.
Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker, you
Right.
would trust them more than Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown.
Yeah,
You would?
definitely Hollywood Brown. Definitely Hollywood Brown.
You would
Hollywood Brown has never been reliable, ever.
you would trust them more than Xavier Worthy.
No, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Xavier Worthy, no.
You would trust them more than Jalen Royals, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes. No doubt in my mind on that end.
You heard it here first on the Winning Browns podcast, my friends. Let us know what you guys think in the comments section about
I don't
this
mind,
Ravens Chiefs. But it is a very interesting debate to have. Personally, I mean, I get your argument about the Ravens Chiefs. I considered this for a long time. I personally think that the Ravens are maybe a year away, and I think that they still need to make a few moves before you can make
Like
that
what?
argument.
Explain to me like what?
Like you mentioned the pass rush. I don't necessarily agree with you on this pass rush. I get that they're on,
Okay.
productivity, they've been great. But against this Chiefs offensive line, you got to have another true
Oh, come
hit
on, don't
maker
do
in
that.
order to get there.
That's what I'm asking you. That Chiefs offensive line unit, what improvement was made?
Doesn't need to be an improvement. They're that
Oh,
good.
here we go.
No, they're that good. When you have Andy Reid as your schemer and you have Creed Humphrey next to Trey Smith, I mean, you can't just rely on Nnamdi Madubuike. I mean, Odafe Owe is the definition of inconsistency, right? Mike Green is great, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that you or I expect him to be right off the bat. Okay,
Sure, fine.
who are you going? Then after that, I mean, Travis Jones is promising, but we haven't seen anything out of him yet.
You know what
Broderick
the Chiefs lack, man? You know what the Chiefs lack that the Ravens have? Abundance. The defensive line, the thing that about the way that defense plays is it's inconsistent in its roster.
But
In
if
the
that's
sense that they'll put in things as quick as you can and they won't even notice, especially at the second half of the season. When you look at the defensive line, there was a statistics I think I saw on something, I don't even remember now. I think it was a Twitter post, if I'm not wrong. Essentially, the defensive line played with four. This is where I disagree. The Chargers and the Ravens have two different systems. But when you look at the Ravens, they played with a concept.
I was talking more about I was talking more about their secondary scheme, but okay, yeah.
Well, secondary, pretty much everybody runs the same thing. It's a cover two, under down.
Yeah.
Thing. But when you look at that defensive line unit, right, it's going to transition between 3+1 or a 5 type defensive line unit. That's how they run it. In this 5 type of defensive line unit, Madubuike was the most consistent guy. And over a course of a drive, he's not even there 100% of the time. He's off and on. People look at that as downside. I'm saying they have so much stuff, so much stack in them that they can put a linebacker as a inside defensive lineman and still dominate the pass rusher.
Yeah, but you know
That's
what?
what the Chiefs lack. Because their offensive line unit is not as efficient in maintaining energy, in maintaining that overall through a course of time, being able to extend it. Let me say this. I'm not diminishing the Chiefs. I don't want to be a Chiefs hater. But the truth is,
they're vulnerable.
Now that it's going to pause. Because right now, Patrick Mahomes, this is where his legacy is defined. This season and the next 2 seasons is where Patrick Mahomes' legacy is defined. If he can make it to another AFC championship or another Super Bowl, that just shows he's a top 2 quarterback of all time. He doesn't. Now we're going to be talking about a conversation where this man might fall to 3 or 4. That's genuinely there. Because the simplest thing here is this. If you don't have Travis Kelce, you don't have the one man you've relied on your entire career, right? Pacheco, you have Rashid, you have a lot of talented young guys. But the receivers, and we talk about Andy Reid's system, it's a great system. But last season, what we saw of Andy Reid's system was this. It was a system designed on just barely enough winning. It's just there to win, right? It's not a 38-10 type of system. It's a system where it's going to be 17-14 or 45-43, right?
You know
it's a type of system that's just barely there to win.
And you know what? I think that's all the Chiefs need to be a team with the coaching staff that makes as many mistakes with the Ravens.
I'm sorry, not now.
Hey, we agree to disagree on this specific instance, but let us know what you guys think in the comments section about the Chiefs and the Ravens. Do you guys think that Lamar Jackson, this will finally be the year for Lamar to step up? Let us know in the comments section. But certainly, I have the Chiefs moving on. As far as the other matchups go,
The one that really intrigues me the most now, right? A couple weeks ago was the Broncos Bills, and I'll get to that in a sec. I'm very confident on that take. Um, but the Packers and the Vikings, let's start off with that, right?
Yeah.
Originally, I did not have the Packers even playing the Vikings in this divisional round. This
Then
became
Micah
changed
happened.
because
So
of the Micah Parsons trade. But to me, I have the Packers moving on for a couple reasons. Number one, I do think that the Vikings' offensive line has gotten a lot better to the point where they can mitigate the Packers' defensive line, right? I think if there's one team that has the ability to stop um, Micah Parsons and that offensive line to the fullest and set up a game plan for every other team to be able to stop him come playoff time, it's the Minnesota Vikings because of what type of things they do with their stunts. Now having a guy as versatile to play both tackle and guard like Donovan Jackson, admitted he's probably the weak point for this offensive line, being that he's a rookie guard, and I think that he's a little bit raw, which could be a place where this Packers team takes advantage. The problem is the Packers don't exactly have a strong defensive line, like interior defensive line outside of Devontae Wyatt. You can move players around, right? You can move Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Micah Parsons, but there's no true second defensive line outside of Devontae Wyatt. Obviously, they lost Teradale Slayton and Kenny Clark, so that kind of becomes a little bit tricky there. But what helps them in this instance is the fact that the Vikings have a little bit of a weaker run game. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, they're both really good, but the Packers have two exceptional linebackers in Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. I trust Josh Jacobs in any sense better, more than Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason any day of the week. I think that helps them in this instance.
true.
As far as as far as the quarterbacks go, Jordan Love versus JJ McCarthy, I trust Jordan Love any day of the week here. As much as I like JJ McCarthy, and I could very well see a situation where he ends up outplaying Jordan Love, I have more trust in Jordan Love in this situation under any circumstance for another couple of reasons as well. Number one, you can argue, yes, Jordan Love doesn't have as great receivers. JJ McCarthy has Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, etc. But the difference is, I mean, you talked about the cornerbacks earlier on. While Justin Jefferson very much has the opportunity of being able to expose this Packers team, you're playing with a rookie quarterback, okay? And the Packers have the two best safeties, two of the best safeties. Let me just start off with that. Two of the best safeties in the entire league, in Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. Not to mention some great depth behind them in guys like Keaton Oladipo, etc. All the Packers need to do is get one great scheme on just locking down Justin Jefferson, and they will be fine, right? That's what I look at that being the case. On top of that, again, the X factor, there are a couple X factors that I see being part of this game. Number one, Micah Parsons, right? He speaks for himself. Number two, it's on the Vikings defense. Byron Murphy. If Byron Murphy has a Rod Woodson type game where he's all over the place as far as a defensive back, the Vikings can win this, and they can win this big, actually. The problem is, I don't see that happening. Byron Murphy has had his problems.
Exactly.
It could be this year, but the thing is, Byron Murphy has his limitations as a boundary cornerback consistently. And when quick
question.
Sure.
If Cooper Kupp this season plays, just enough or if not slightly even better than what the Vikings need them to be, right? I agree with you that if the Packers and Vikings go head-to-head in the playoffs, Micah's going to get his win with the Packers, right?
Yeah.
But give it a year, right? After this year, the next year, if they both face off against each other in the playoffs, do you think the Vikings will have the upper hand?
Given they make the right moves, yeah. I think next year, if they have the opportunity...
Well, what moves would you say they still need to make? So that's the thing I always ask myself. Like, when it comes to the Vikings, I don't know a roster that's better built.
Cornerback is one. I would say also they need to add a little more depth on the defensive line. I was talking about Josh Jacobs specifically earlier.
Okay.
And the Packers,
that's not a big deal, but okay.
It's not a big deal. But when you play a guy like Josh Jacobs and you have a quarterback like Jordan Love, that combo, you have to have
He's one of the best defensive line units in the NFL, though.
100%. 100%. But
The defensive line lost a key piece that I think hurt the Vikings the minute that Micah Parsons was traded to the Packers. That
Yeah.
being Harrison Phillips, who they traded away, I forget who, to the Jets, right? Um, that to me hurt them a lot because Harrison Phillips was a key piece for this defense as far as his versatility to play multiple different techniques. As small as he is so strong to be able to play nose tackle.
Yeah.
That is going to be a huge reason as to why if they play the Packers in the postseason, they can lose. That's one, right?
Yeah.
They also lost Kyrus Tonga and other players in the past, so that doesn't help too. But the cornerback room to me is the big issue. You have a specific type of receiver that the Packers have, like guys like Christian Watson, guys like Romeo Doubs, who help Jordan Love as far as throwing the ball deep. And the Vikings, they need more because they have a safety like Josh Metellus. Number one, Harrison Smith is not a guy you can trust on an everyday basis anymore, right?
No,
He's
not
not the
anymore.
same player that
He's
he
old,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Two, Josh Metellus is a great safety. He's not exactly known as a range to range Earl Thomas type safety, number one. Number two, he has to play a lot of different places if Josh Jacobs is that much of an X factor for the Packers. That is going to take a lot of attention away from deep threats like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. So for
Right.
me, from that angle, that to me is the where the Packers win the game. One or two deep threats that just basically put them on the doorstep of a touchdown, pound it in with Josh Jacobs. I think that the stat line at the end of the game is Jacobs has 3 touchdowns, something like 80 to 100 yards. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, one of them has 2 or 3 big plays that inflate their stats to like 80 yards. That's to me what ends up having the Packers win this game.
It's true.
Then we go to the Eagles Buccaneers. And like I said, I think the Buccaneers are as good of a Super Bowl contender, if any. But if there's one team they do not want to face in the postseason, it is
Yes.
the Eagles. The Eagles have them beat at everything. The Eagles are that complete of a roster. Their pass rush is great. The Eagles' offensive line is a little bit weak. As you mentioned, Landon Dickerson has that injury, and Kenyon
It doesn't
Green
matter.
hasn't necessarily materialized. But it doesn't really matter, as you said. Levante David is great. Saquon Barkley is better. The secondary is incredibly young, and you're playing a receiving room that has two of the best receivers in football in Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Everything that the Buccaneers have is slight weaknesses. Just like I said with the Cardinals, everything that the Cardinals you mentioned about the Cardinals, the Buccaneers can take advantage of. It same thing applies with the Buccaneers. Everything that the Buccaneers have doubts about, the Eagles can take advantage of. And to me, that's a convincing win that they have against the Buccaneers to move on to the NFC Championship. Now, this is my favorite. The Broncos over the Bills. I think the Broncos win this game, and I don't know if it's close or not close, but I don't think it's not surprising to me at all. Number one, we have to take in consideration the fact that Josh Allen does not necessarily have the greatest weapons on the planet, right? Let's take that into consideration. You play a Broncos defense that includes the likes of one of the most versatile defensive linemen in the game in Nick Bonito, right? A safety room that includes one of the most versatile safeties in Talanoa Fanga, and a cornerback room.
So now Hufanga's great. Okay.
No. But he might not be the greatest, but he's certainly versatile enough to help minimize against Josh Allen, right? You add that on to a cornerback room that includes Pat Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year, as well as Jahdae Barron, who's my defensive rookie of the year, as you guys can see over here, right? To me, and especially with Jahdae Barron's versatility to play nickel cornerback, boundary cornerback, blitz, and play safety, it's that versatility that I think minimizes Josh Allen's ability to get the ball to his weapons. Now, of course, we're talking about Josh Allen here, who's one of the most elite quarterbacks in all of football. So he's still going to have a great game. But that's where, to me, this Broncos pass rush and this Broncos defensive line comes in handy. Man, I'm telling you, when I say that this Denver Broncos defensive line is the most underrated defensive line in the game, I mean it. Draymond Jones, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, they are going to be the X factors in this game. And against Buffalo's offensive line, I would trust that Broncos defensive line any day. You add in the fact that Buffalo's defense has had weaknesses. Matt Milano has not been healthy for a couple of years, right? Gregory Rousseau is good, but inconsistent. Ed Oliver is good, but inconsistent. That Broncos running back room with RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams, and the scheme that Sean Payton puts out there, to me, that is another X factor that decides this game for the Broncos in every sort of way. To me, Bo Nix doesn't even need to necessarily play his greatest game, but he has the advantage of playing against a Buffalo cornerback room that is not great, right? So in every single weakness that Buffalo has, the Broncos are better. So from that angle, I pick the Broncos over the Buffalo Bills, and I think that they, again, like I said, I am super, super, super high on this Broncos team. I think that they will shock a lot of people. I think that they are going to make it to the AFC Championship. Now, moving on to the AFC and NFC Championship games. As far as the Chiefs versus Broncos, I don't think this is really that much of.
Josh, I'll just say one quick thing. The Bills last season had the same receiving room, and Josh Allen was the MVP. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with you. And
I'll leave it at that. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. But like I said, I think people are, as much as you can tell me I'm sleeping on Josh Allen. First off, I'm not. But two, I think for everyone
Man,
who's.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like, okay, you're not one of those haters of Josh Allen, but certainly not one of those, duly right-giving guys for Josh Allen. I
No.
don't think.
I'm not gonna just favor a quarterback just because he's that great. But that's how highly I think of this Broncos defense. That I think Josh Allen could have the greatest
Look.
game of his life, and Denver is that good.
Okay,
That's how highly I think of them.
Look, I've told it on other occasions as well, on this offseason especially. The Broncos defense this season has probably the highest chance of being the best defense in the NFL. I just don't see Bo Nix and that offensive unit yet being at the level that the defense is at right now. And the Bills' defense has really not been at fault since Sean McDermott's tenure. I mean, this guy's a head coach, just been flawless when it comes to defensively playing against anybody, anytime.
But let me ask you this, Akhilesh. Where are the weaknesses on that Buffalo defense, would you say?
On the Buffalo defense?
Yeah.
Cornerback room off the bat, I would say, is probably the biggest weakness. Defensive line, don't have a problem with that at all. Linebacker unit is also a great unit. Safety unit is also a good unit. I just have a big problem with their cornerbacks right now because you had a really talented young guy as a rookie corner, but now he's injured. We don't know when he's coming back, if he's coming back or not. You have number 27. I forgot his name quickly now, but just talented guys.
Yeah, I mean,
they're either old or too young or injured right now. That's my only concern. But at the same time, I just don't know if. See, with Sean Payton, one thing that I really saw past season was he relied on the run game as the kind of breaking point to allow for short passes or long passes.
Sure.
I love J.K. Dobbins. I love J.K. Dobbins, but he's just not reliable at the end of the day. The man gets injured too much to be.
And and that's the thing, though. I don't think he needs to be the most reliable because of the fact that the Broncos have three guys who are basically just platoons who can be put in any situation, and we've seen Sean Payton.
That's fair. I just don't offensively see it gelling quick enough to beat the Bills this season. Next season, I would definitely be like really agreeing with you. Probably right now, it's too close for a call. But you go ahead.
But yeah, I got the Broncos again. Like I said, this is how highly I think of this Denver Broncos team. I really think that they're going to shock a lot of people. But we move on to the championship games. I got the Chiefs over the Broncos. At the end of the day, this comes down to just the quarterback situation. If you want to take about everything else, Patrick Mahomes is much better than Bo Nix. Bo Nix can have the struggles that Akhilesh is talking about, but this Steve Spagnuolo defense is great at disguising for a young quarterback. That's always a problem, and that's going to be a problem for Bo Nix. So that'll start off with that. The Eagles over the Packers. I went back and forth on this. I think it's going to be a very close game. I would love to say that the Packers actually win this game. But what it came down to me was that cornerback room against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, at the end of the day, they are just that good. And like I said before, too, the other instance is the fact that as great as Micah Parsons is, as versatile as he is, as many problems as he's given the Eagles in the past, right? You're talking about one of the best offensive lines in football. Great right guard or not. Kenyon Green being good or not. Mekhi Becton not being on this team or not. They're still one of the best offensive linemen offensive lines in the game. And the Packers just do not have any interior defensive line depth. Not enough. You cannot tell me that you're just relying on Devontae Wyatt when the Eagles running back is Saquon Barkley. It just does not work. And those two reasons simply are the reasons why I have Philadelphia moving on. So yes, unfortunately, like I said again, blame Jerry Jones for trading Micah Parsons to the Packers for why I have a boring Super Bowl matchup. But it's the Eagles over the Chiefs. I think the Eagles are the better team on paper. And for all the weaknesses that Akhilesh believes that the Chiefs are going to lose to the Ravens, those are the reasons why I have the Eagles beating the Chiefs. All of those reasons. The Eagles have got a better coaching staff. They know how to beat Kansas City better than any other team.
I don't know about a better coaching staff. But
better coaching staff than the Ravens, excuse me.
No.
Oh, yeah. You're telling me the Vic fan? Come on. But either way.
Defensive coordinator, I'll give you that. Their offensive.
We both ranked Nick Sirianni ahead of Jim Harbaugh in the coaching.
That's true. That's fair. I don't. Okay, I'll give it to you, bro. It's better, but it's not like in smiles better.
No, I'm not saying that, but still, I mean, they are better and they know how to beat the Chiefs. And what it comes down to at that point is the Eagles still have the best roster in football, and their coaching staff, compared to the Detroit Lions, who lost both coordinators, I don't think losing Kellen Moore is going to be as bad for this Eagles offense as losing someone like Shane Steichen a few years ago. As long as what's it called? Who's the new offensive coordinator? I forget his name.
I don't know myself, actually.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but whoever the new offensive coordinator is, I think that when I looked him up, I thought that he was kind of perfect for what Jalen Hurts could do as far as expanding his passing game, and I think that's enough against this Chiefs secondary that still has certain weaknesses. So to me, this defense is going to get only better with the young players that are on that: Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, etc. This offense is already one of the best in the league. I see the Eagles beating the Chiefs. But yeah, those are my predictions. Akhilesh, any other thoughts?
I mean, we know what a travesty that Ravens Chiefs was, but I'll leave it there.
Joking. Yeah, I mean, but that's it.
It's a good list.
But yeah, I mean, that's it for the video. Let us know what you guys think about the predictions overall. Let us know in the comments your own predictions. And we're excited for a great 2025 NFL season. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.